The comics are divided into sagas, with the first saga being titled Green Ranger. We can start by seeing that Tommy Oliver is the Green Ranger, and he is alongside Rita Repulsa. The other Rangers are dead, and that is because Tommy is under Rita's spell. She is very excited about what Tommy has done and starts to congratulate him, telling him that the world is ready for its new beginning. At that moment, the voice of Jason, the Red Ranger, is heard calling Tommy. They were both in the car, and it seems that Tommy was thinking about all of this inside his head. Inside the car was also Rita, who was talking to Tommy and tormenting him. Jason obviously could not see Rita, but Tommy knew she was there. Jason suspects that something is wrong with Tommy, so he starts asking him questions, and he answers that he feels fine, but he is a little nervous because it is the first day he is going to school as a ranger. All the rangers arrive at the school, and they all meet in the parking lot to have a conversation before entering the building. In this conversation they only talk about the exams they have, and we can start to see the personality of each one. Inside the school they try to talk to Tommy, but they realize that he is distracted and doesn't answer anything they are saying to him. In all this time Rita kept talking to Tommy, and that is why he was distracted. Then he tells the other Rangers that he must go and that he will catch up with them later. On the moon, we can see that at the palace Rita asks Finster if the new monster is ready, and he tells her that this new monster has unconventional weapons for an unconventional war. At the school we can see Tommy, Trini and Kimberly listening to the teacher in a class, and Kimberly sends a message to Tommy telling him that he can smile occasionally. We can see that Tommy liked the message, but suddenly another person enters alerting the students that they should run to the gym as there is an incident in progress. In the background we can hear the screams of the monster that Rita had sent to Earth, and all the students start running towards the gym. The Rangers go outside of the school to see what was going on and notice the giant monster. At that moment, Jason tells the Rangers that it's Morphin time, and all the Rangers begin the transformation. Then the Rangers decide to start big and call the Megazords. The monster continues to destroy the city, and the Rangers arrive with the Dino Megazord and the Dragon Zord to try to stop it. The monster is very strange. It has a circle of light on some parts of its body, and the Rangers are a bit confused because they don't know what it is. They start to think of a strategy to defeat the monster because it has a very strong armor, but at that moment Tommy attacks it with the Dragon Zord without asking the other Rangers. Then the other Rangers enter the fight with the Megazord and grab the monster by the neck so Tommy can attack it. Unfortunately, the Dragon Zord's controls are jammed, and Rita takes the opportunity to tell Tommy that he's nothing without her. The other Rangers are asking Tommy to attack quickly as they can't resist much, and Tommy, angry at Rita's words, takes control of the Dragon Zord. Then he manages to explode the monster with the tail, but Tommy loses control and the Zord is not responding. Because of this, he destroys a part of the bridge, and some people are in danger, so Kimberly goes to the rescue in her Zord. Kimberly's Zord takes off from the Megazord and manages to reach the cars that were about to fall into the water. Tommy is confused because he doesn't know what happened to the Dragon Zord, and in the command center he tries to explain to Zordon what was going on. Then Jason and Tommy start arguing as Jason tells him that he didn't follow orders, and Tommy tells him that he didn't understand anything. Zordon stops the fight and talks about the responsibilities each of them has. He also talks about being vigilant, since now that Tommy is not on Rita's team, she is going to come in stronger. This lets us know that the story began after Jason managed to free Tommy from Rita's spell, and although in the TV series they show a Tommy loyal to the Rangers, here we are shown a slightly different story. We get to see that this Tommy is still confused, and Rita can speak to him in his thoughts. We then see Scorpina on a ship under the bridge that the Dragon Zord broke, and she is apparently looking for something. When she finds what she was looking for, we can see that it is a piece of crystal, and then she brings Rita this piece of crystal, still not knowing what it really was. Rita had told Scorpina that the Rangers were going to ignore this crystal, and apparently this is what caused the Dragon Zord to get out of control. Rita is very grateful for Scorpina's work for finding this crystal, and it is apparently very important. Because of this, Scorpina asks Rita what the crystal is. We will be able to see the answer in other comics later on, since this crystal is going to be very important for many stories, including Lord Drakkon's stories. Bulk and Skull are making a video recapping everything that has happened with the Rangers since the beginning. They begin the video by greeting their audience and introducing themselves to those new so-called subscribers. They start this recording from the juice bar and begin to explain everything they have been able to record about the Power Rangers. They both begin to tell the story of the first day the world was able to hear Rita Repulsa and knew that she wanted to conquer the Earth. Although that day may be remembered as the beginning of an era of terror and ugly monsters, they prefer to see things slightly differently. Even though the world got to meet this terrible witch, they also got to meet their heroes, the Power Rangers. They both start asking questions about who the Rangers are, how they got their powers, and where they keep their giant robots. Bulk then proceeds to answer these questions and says that no one knows the answers for sure. Then Skull says that, if you pay for the premium subscription to the podcast called The Ranger Station, you can listen to them talk about all these theories every week. Bulk gets angry and asks to stop the recording as he wants to do the promo at the end. He then continues the recording by saying that as much as Rita's monsters have tried, they have been no match for the Power Rangers, and that is the reason he has created his own Ranger. In this part, Bulk is talking about the Green Ranger. He then begins to relate the battle that was going on between the Green Ranger and the Power Rangers, as it was a great battle. He says that the Green Ranger seemed unstoppable, and everyone thought the world would fall into Rita's hands. Still, apparently the Rangers found a way to defeat him, and although they are not sure of this, it is what everyone assumes since they are still alive. He also says that 2 days ago we entered a new era as the Power Rangers and the Green Ranger with his Dragon Zord started working together. Despite this, Bulk and Skull don't know if the Power Rangers and the Green Ranger are partners, but they are going to interview the public to find out what they think. In the interviews we can see that there are unknown people, but also Billy, Trini and Tommy appear. The opinion of the unknown people is basically the same. They are all confused and think that the Green Ranger is not trustworthy since the Dragon Zord destroyed the bridge. Obviously, Billy and Trini say that it's good for the Rangers to work as a team, but Tommy doesn't want to answer and simply tells Bulk that he doesn't understand the question. Despite this, Bulk and Skull start pressuring Tommy by asking him to talk about what he thinks of the Power Rangers since he is the new kid in school. At that moment, Kimberly shows up and tells them both not to push Tommy anymore, as with that pressure he can't answer any questions. Tommy asks them to give him time to think about the answers, and they leave in a huff. Kimberly and Tommy continue to walk down the hallways of the school, and the two begin to talk about their plans for later in the day. Kimberly invites Tommy for coffee after practice, and he accepts, very surprised by the invitation. In the classroom we can see Jason sitting behind Zach, who is asleep and starts making a lot of noise. The teacher notices that Zach is asleep and proceeds to wake him up very angrily. Because of this he tells Zach that he is punished after class, and Jason tries to defend him, but the teacher punishes him as well. At lunchtime all the Rangers are gathered at the same table and begin to dialogue about what happened with Zach in class. Then Trini tells them that while Zack and Jason are serving their punishment, she and Billy are going to check the Dragonzord to find out why he didn't respond to Tommy. Kimberly is very concerned and asks Billy if they are going to be able to fix it. Billy obviously replies that he hopes they can make it since neither of them know what it looks like on the inside. We then see Tommy with his lunch looking for a place to sit while Rita keeps talking to him to try to manipulate him by humiliating him. She shows him that there are several people watching the video of the Dragonzord destroying the bridge and uses this to try to blame Tommy for the suffering of the people on that day. Tommy responds to Rita very angrily. He tells her that she won't be able to break him as he is stronger than her and is now a Power Ranger. At that moment, Tommy finds the other Rangers and sits down with them, but unfortunately, the bell rings and the Rangers must go to their classes. Tommy has a different schedule, so he is left alone at the table, but Kimberly reminds him before he leaves that they will see each other later. Bulk and Skull continue to interview people, and this time they are interviewing Jason and Zack. They both try to tell Bulk that the Rangers are a team and Rita also has a very large team. If the Green Ranger has switched sides, then they don't think that's a bad thing, but Bulk asks him, how do the Rangers know they can trust him? Zack tells him that the Rangers are giving him a chance. Jason ends up replying that everyone deserves a second chance, and if the Rangers believe in that guy, that's good enough for him. Then, at Rita's palace we can see that she is sitting on the throne with the crystal that Scorpina had been looking for, which she wants to know if the crystal is ready. Rita replies that even though the chaos energy caused by the Dragonzord destroying the monster and then the bridge, it was a very good start for an initial charge, even so, they need more. With this we can already know that Rita wants to fill this crystal with evil energy called chaos energy, which she can get when the crystal is near the Green Ranger, and he destroys something. Jason and Zack are serving their punishment, locked in a classroom after school, and since they have plenty of time, they begin to talk. Jason is a little upset that Zack won't tell him what's going on with him because he stayed up at night and that this caused him to fall asleep in class. In the end, Zack tells him that it's a family problem he's having at home, but then asks him if he's also upset that Zordon didn't ask anyone about how they feel about having Tommy on the team. Jason tells him that even though he is a little angry, still, if Zordon believed in them when they started and now, he believes in Tommy, then they can't doubt. Now we can see Tommy inside the pocket dimension where Zordon can create a simulation of some situations for the Rangers to train in. In this situation we can see that the previous monster is attacking the Earth, Kimberly is in her Zord and Tommy tries to help several people. The putty patrollers try to attack the people, but Tommy starts to destroy them and asks Kimberly to help him by shooting from her Zord. Then Tommy tries to lead the people to a safe path, but it was a trap, and that path is full of putty patrollers. In the end Tommy can't take them all and the people are trapped there. All this time Rita was talking to Tommy trying to discourage him, but he was able to resist. Then the simulation ends, and Tommy feels disappointed that he couldn't save the people. Zordon tells him that the mission was set up to fail because with this they can see how he reacted in moments of failure. Tommy asks him to try again, but this time he wants to try alone and asks Kimberly to reschedule the coffee date. At the end of the day, Tommy gets home and tries to practice what he is going to say in the Bulk and Skull interview. He looks in the mirror and thinks about how to answer about what the Rangers mean to him. At that moment he feels a sword on his neck. It was Scorpina who tells him not to waste too much time as he only has a few moments left. After the Dragonzord failed and Tommy couldn't control it, the Rangers wanted to know what happened that day. It was Billy who obviously had to start investigating what was going on with the Dragonzord since he is the only Ranger with the knowledge necessary to repair a Zord. Trini is the only ranger who can understand Billy's words when he tries to explain what is going on, since she is so intelligent that her way of speaking is hard for most people to understand. Even though Trini understands, she still isn't smart enough to be able to fix the Zords herself. They are both trying to repair the Dragon Zord, and the explanation Billy says is that the Zords make a balance between what they feel on the outside and the Ranger who is controlling it. If one of these two parts fails, then the Zord goes out of control. This is the first time Billy is going to enter the cockpit of the Dragon Zord, and so he is a little nervous as he doesn't know what he is going to find in there. He thinks that the Zord might be made of some unknown magic, since Rita was the one controlling Tommy, but Trini clarifies to him that Tommy is just like the other Rangers. Billy tells her that Tommy is just like the other Rangers, a fighter like the others. This is because Billy has never been a fighter and has always been a person who solves things with his intellect. Trini tries to encourage him by telling him that no one can do what he does, and she has learned a lot from him. This is why Billy could be the most well-rounded team member, since he learned how to fight and is the smartest ranger in history. Possibly, Billy could be the most important member of the team, since he has created a lot of technology that the Rangers have used, and he has managed to save the other Rangers from many difficult situations. Both of them are still trying to repair the Dragon Zord, which is in the depths of the ocean, and Billy wants to do it fast to get out of the water. Scorpina continues into Tommy's room and starts threatening him to hand over the power coin. Tommy obviously refuses and tells her that Rita must be desperate to have to send a stand-in. At that moment, Tommy's mother comes to the door of the room to offer him food, and Scorpina tries to use this moment to further threaten Tommy. Because of this, Tommy gets very angry, and after pushing Scorpina's sword, he grabs her by her arm and teleports to a faraway place. She takes advantage of this moment to break Tommy's communicator, since she thinks that now in this place, he will not be able to get help, and now she will be able to defeat him. Tommy realizes the situation, so he does Morphin to start fighting. The battle begins and Tommy tries to attack with his dragon dagger, but Scorpina defends herself very well with her sword. Then she underestimates Tommy and tells him that he should think things over before fighting an experienced warrior when he is so young. She is a great warrior with many skills, and this is demonstrated when she disappears without Tommy noticing. Then she appears above him and attacks him hard. At the end we can see that Scorpina now has many putty patrollers behind her ready to attack Tommy. We now see Jason as a teacher in a martial arts class, and apparently his students respect him a lot. Kimberly is sitting waiting for the class to end so she can talk to Jason and enjoys listening to the students. The two begin a dialogue and she tells Jason that she just wanted to get out of her house since her parents are still fighting. Then she also tells him about what happened with Tommy, and now she thinks he might not even be noticing her. Jason tells her that class is over, so he needs some coffee and invites her over in case she still wants coffee. Kimberly accepts the invitation, and just then Jason's martial arts teacher shows up. She recommends to Jason that he should bring Tommy to teach the class together, since he has a different fighting style because he comes from another place, and that would be good for the students. In Jason's words we can notice that he didn't like this idea very much, but he still said he would think about it. At that moment, the communicator rings and Zordon tells the Rangers that Tommy needs help. In the middle of Tommy's battle, we can see the words of Rita, who is explaining what is truly going on as she has a hidden plan. Scorpina's sword has the Chaos Crystal, and every hit Tommy takes fills this crystal with energy. Rita chose Tommy because he never gives up, and she knew he was going to keep fighting. This is going to keep causing the crystal to keep filling with energy, and she will be able to complete her plan. Despite this, Rita wants Scorpina to take the power coin from him as she says this will get them the victory. Tommy is losing the battle and now Scorpina is going to try to take the power coin from him. At that moment, Jason and Kimberly arrive to save Tommy by firing their blasters at Scorpina. Jason starts fighting Scorpina while Kimberly tries to free Tommy using the blaster sword. Then Zack arrives to help the Rangers as well and Scorpina continues to threaten the Rangers by telling them that Armageddon is coming. When Kimberly finally frees Tommy, Tommy starts running to try to catch up to Scorpina saying that he can't let her escape. Despite this, Scorpina escapes and Tommy is left very confused in the middle of the forest as Rita starts talking to him again. She tries to turn him against the other Rangers by telling him that Jason wouldn't have needed help and basically making him feel like a failure. She also tries to make him think that the other Rangers think he is a failure, and this is why they must come help him. Although Tommy tries to stop Rita from playing with his thoughts, she manages to make him start to get confused. Because of this, Tommy tries to defend himself from the Rangers by explaining everything that happened since they are confused. The Rangers don't understand how Tommy was with Scorpina in that place and Tommy thinks that they are accusing him. Rita's words really have Tommy very confused, and this has started to create misunderstandings among the Rangers. At the command center, the Rangers along with Zordon try to figure out Rita's plan as they understand that she is after Tommy's power coin and is going to try anything to get it. Rita keeps talking to Tommy in his thoughts and tells him that the right decision is to give the coin to her. Despite this, Tommy says that he doesn't care what she tries, but he's not going to give her the power coin or the Dragon Zord. Kimberly then asks Billy and Trini if they managed to figure out what was going on with the Dragon Zord. Billy begins to explain that basically the Zord was fine, but for some unknown reason the Dragon Zord stopped obeying Tommy. Rita takes this opportunity to tell Tommy that he is to blame for this and that he is to blame for the destruction of the bridge. Suddenly, Tommy shouts very angrily and says that he is tired of all this, the annoying talk and all. At that moment, he could no longer continue talking and fainted. In Rita's palace we can see that Golder is locked up as a punishment for losing the Green Ranger. Because of this, Golder does not want to eat as he feels ashamed for failing his queen and now thinks that she will never release him. On Earth, after Tommy passed out, he now wakes up in his mother's house and she tries to wake him up. Tommy wakes up and is very confused, not knowing what was going on. His mother begins to explain to him that he had passed out and his ranger friends brought him home to rest. With those words Tommy was already suspecting that something was not right, and his mother started to tell him that he should just give up. As she says these words, she starts to take off her mask as she was not Tommy's mother, she was actually Rita in disguise. Tommy gets very scared, and Rita starts to tell him that she is the only one who really loves him. Suddenly, Tommy screams very loudly and at that moment he wakes up again in the command center. This was all part of a hallucination he had while passing out. The other Rangers are very concerned as they don't understand what is happening to Tommy as he is still very confused after passing out. Kimberly tries to calm him down and asks Alpha to get him some water. The Rangers think that something might have happened to him because of the fight he had with Scorpina. Trini starts checking Tommy's pulse and notices that his heart is beating too fast, so she tells Zordon that she thinks they should do a scan. Zordon thinks the scan would be very prudent and Trini tries to calm Tommy down by telling him that she is going to try to find out what was happening to him. Rita, in her palace, starts to say that Tommy is losing control and the best part is that the other Rangers haven't noticed. She also explains that she is still connected to the Green Ranger since, Even though she is not under his spell, she is still connected to his powers since she gave them to him. Scorpina begins to apologize for failing the mission since she was supposed to take the power coin from Tommy and also the dragon dagger. Rita replies that she did an excellent job since what they needed was for Tommy to fight at his maximum power so that the green energy of chaos would begin to fill the crystal with energy. Now all that's left is the final attack and the crystal will have enough energy to open the portal. Scorpina is confused as she thought they needed the dragon dagger for the final attack, but Rita tells her that they don't need the dragon dagger, they just need a dragon dagger. This means they can create a replica of the original dagger, and this would be enough. Finster brings a hot metal in liquid form to fill the hole of a putty patroller that has the dragon dagger impregnated after the fight with Tommy. This way they can create an exact replica of the original dagger. In the command center, Trini begins to test Tommy to find out what is happening in his body and all his energy. She starts talking to him to try to calm him down as Tommy is very nervous and says that Trini is very good at relaxing her patients. Then, they both start to hear a very loud noise and they leave the command center along with Alpha. This noise was caused by the Dragonzord, which tries to hit them with its tail and Alpha 5 is destroyed. Trini and Tommy were able to dodge the blow and now she thinks he called the Zord. They both morph to try to stop the Dragonzord, but it quickly attacks them, so Trini calls her Zord so they can fight. The battle of both Zords begins and although Trini's Zord is very fast, still, the Dragonzord is very powerful and manages to knock him down. Tommy tries to control the Zord with the music of the dagger, so the Zord starts to get closer. Tommy keeps playing the melody to control the Zord and when he thinks he is under control, the Dragonzord attacks him. Suddenly, Tommy wakes up again in the command center and it seems that he had another evil vision provoked by Rita. He begins to tell Trini everything he saw in his vision, although he still thinks it all felt very real. She tries to calm him down and asks him to lie down again so she can review his entire energy scan. The other Rangers are gathered in a restaurant and Zack is talking to them about what's going on with Tommy. He thinks something isn't right, but they don't know what it is yet. Despite everything that has happened, still, Kimberly keeps defending Tommy, then gets really angry and tells the other Rangers that if they have something to say they should say it now. Jason doesn't want to get too involved, but Zack starts to say that Tommy came to this town and Rita chose him and she doesn't choose just anyone. They don't know if even Rita is still controlling him since in the woods, he had a bad attitude and that should scare them all. Kimberly asks Zack if he's not even going to give Tommy a second chance, but he replies that they just need to be much more careful. Kimberly then asks Jason for his opinion, and he tells her that with all the things that have happened, it's clear that there is something wrong with Tommy. Kimberly tells them that this is a reason for them to help him and Jason replies that they are going to help him, but they can't do much until he admits to himself that he has a problem. Then Billy says he's going to be able to fix the communicator and at that point Trini calls the Rangers to go to the command center to see something. At the command center, Trini shows everyone what an energy scan of any of the Rangers looks like and we can see that it is an organized energy. She then shows Tommy's energy results, and this energy looks different. Billy says that the dragon coin is not connected to the grid in the same way as the other coins, but it is still weird that his energy looks like this. Zordon then explains that this could have many explanations, including just Tommy's body getting used to the energy. The Rangers are worried as they don't know if this is Rita's fault and Zordon says he can't say for sure without more proof. Kimberly again starts to defend Tommy saying that it is impossible that Rita is controlling him since if he was having visions then he would have said so quickly. At this point, Tommy begins to confess everything that had been happening to him all this time. The Rangers begin to confront him and ask him questions about everything Rita tells him in those visions. Then they ask him why he didn't say anything, and Tommy says he wasn't sure what was going on. Then Jason, very angry, starts to claim him since Tommy put everyone's life in danger and he feels responsible for everyone else's life. Now Jason feels that they can't trust Tommy and tells him that he is not ready to go out and fight. Just then, the alarm goes off and the Rangers realize something is going on with the Dragon Zord. Apparently, Rita's plan worked. Scorpina managed to take full control of the Zord using the Dragon Dagger replica combined with the crystal. Now with control of the Dragon Zord, they can now make the final attack and complete the plan. Rita then tells Scorpina to go and destroy everything in her path. Scorpina starts smashing everything in her path, and the first thing she destroys is a ship that was nearby. She confirms to Rita that she can feel how the crystal keeps filling with energy and is now more powerful. Rita tells him to continue so that the crystal fills completely and opens the portal for Armageddon to begin. In the command center, the Rangers are very confused as they don't understand how Scorpina is controlling the Dragon Zord. Apparently, Zordon is not surprised as he says that Rita's history with the Dragon Zord is very long, and he seems to assume that because of this she must have found a way to control the Zord. Billy and Trini try to figure out what energy they are controlling the Dragon Zord with, but they can't figure out what is going on. Meanwhile, Jason asks Tommy to stay in the command center while they take care of everything and then says it's Morphin time. All the Rangers are morphing, but Jason knows they need to get help from the Zords, so he calls them all in. In the city we can see the Dragon Zord starting to destroy everything. People start to run away and Scorpina is very happy with what she is doing. Suddenly, we can see that Billy grabs the Dragon Zord by the foot with the chains of his Zord so he can't move and continue destroying. All the Zords are on the shore of the sea, so Jason asks Billy to drag the Dragon Zord into the sea to get it away from the shore. We can see how Billy has the Dragon Zord tied up and starts to turn around to drag it into the water. On the moon, Rita is very angry about everything that is happening since the Rangers are ruining her plan, so she asks Finster to send monsters to help Scorpina and distract the Rangers while she completes the mission. Just then, 3 giant shark-headed monsters appear and start beating up the Zords, and one of them breaks the chains that were keeping the Dragon Zord bound. Zack, Billy and Trini begin to battle the monsters, while Jason and Kimberly try to stop the Dragon Zord. The battle is very difficult as the monsters are very strong and Scorpina is attacking Jason with the full power of the Dragon Zord. In the command center we are about to witness the most important part of this story, and that is that Tommy starts to listen to Rita again. She tries to humiliate Tommy by telling him that he was left out again and that the hero life is not for everyone. Tommy gets very angry and tells Rita that he remembered some words Trini had said to him. When you go through something terrible, ignoring it empowers him, and the only way to deal with it is to face it. Then, he tells her that, instead of listening to her all the time, he should be the one talking, and he doesn't think she is real. He thinks she's just a reflection of his self-doubt, his insecurity, and everything he hates about himself. Yet, she is still himself, and the only way she has power is if he gives it to her. Then, Tommy is filled with self-confidence and the specter of Rita begins to fade as she screams in despair. Now, Tommy is full of confidence and thinks that he can't just stand there and do nothing while the Rangers are about to be defeated. Zordon tries to persuade him by telling him that if he leaves then he will be disobeying a direct order from Jason. Still, Tommy says that he has the real dagger and perhaps this can save the situation. He is also very sorry to learn that he is disobeying an order, but feels he must try, so he does Morphin. In the middle of the battle, we can see that Tommy appears on top of the Dragonzord's head and Jason is very surprised. Then, Tommy starts creating music with his dagger to try to control the Zord, but Scorpina taunts and makes the Zord shake so Tommy falls off. Kimberly manages to catch Tommy with her Zord and then Trini tells Jason that they need the Megazord since the monsters are too strong. At first, Jason refuses as he is trying to stop Scorpina, but Tommy tells him to call the Megazord as he has a plan. Jason trusts Tommy and begins the Megazord transformation while Tommy asks Kimberly to get as close as she can to the Dragonzord. He then lunges towards the Dragonzord and goes in, breaking the Zord's eye. As he battles Scorpina inside the Zord, the Megazord finishes his transformation and is ready to finish off the monsters. The second round of the battle begins. The Megazord is destroying the monsters with the sword, while Tommy continues to fight Scorpina inside the Dragonzord. All this distracts Scorpina and Tommy is still focused on grabbing the dagger replica. He then manages to grab it and destroys it to stop the mission. Once again, the Rangers have managed to defeat Rita and damaged her entire plan. Even though the Rangers won the battle, in the command center they are arguing about what happened. Jason starts to call Tommy out for disobeying his orders. He tries to defend himself by saying they needed help, but Jason tells him that's not enough of an excuse. The fight gets really loud, and Tommy tells Jason that without him the Rangers wouldn't be there right now. Then Zack enters the argument and tells him that he couldn't trust what he was seeing. Tommy tries to explain to him that he managed to get himself under control and that there was no hallucination. He also explains that the dagger replica and the crystal were what caused his powers to go weird. Now that it's destroyed, they just need to concentrate on locking Scorpina up. He then turns to leave, but Jason tells him they're not done yet and Zack grabs him by the arm to keep him from leaving. This causes Tommy to get very angry and he asks Zack to let go. Zack then tells him that he is tired of him telling the Rangers what they should do. Tommy again asks him to back off and Zack asks him if he is going to be an evil Ranger again. The argument continues and while they are still very angry, the crystal continues to fill with energy as it feeds off the chaos. Even though the dagger is broken, the crystal is still intact and can continue to fill with energy. Then, Tommy and Jason reach their limits of patience and are about to start fighting. This causes the crystal to fill completely with energy, which was Rita's plan, and then the portal opens. Jason asks the Rangers to put their helmets back on as they don't know what is happening, but at that very moment the energy creates a huge explosion. This explosion was so big that it destroyed half of the command center and even though the Rangers are okay, we don't know where Zordon and Alpha are. Tommy thinks it's another hallucination, but Trini tells him it's all very real and this is because they see a giant monster appear. Kimberly thinks they need the Zords, but something very strange starts to happen and the monster begins to shrink in size. The monster greets the Power Rangers and tells them that he has been waiting for this moment for a long time and is eager to destroy them. The Power Rangers series has not only stayed on television and Boom Studio are the main creators of the Power Rangers comics. These comics tell diverse stories and tell details that have never been seen in the series. They are darker stories with alternate realities and villains who like to spill blood. One of these stories narrates the life of the most evil Ranger that ever existed. Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger, who was under the power of Rita, as we talked in the video of the history of Rita. She is the one that finds the sixth coin of power when it arrives to the Earth and begins the war with Zordon. The Green Ranger was created to destroy the Power Rangers who could not face the gigantic power of the Green Ranger. In the reality, we know the Green Ranger had a final battle with the Red Ranger and Tommy managed to free himself from Rita's curse and then joins Zordon and the Power Rangers. But in an alternate reality, the Green Ranger, after being freed from Rita's curse, ran away from everyone and was left wandering around in different cities escaping from the Power Rangers. After a while Rita found Tommy and with all her lies convinced him that she wanted to make a better world. Then, Tommy decided to return to serve her and helped her conquer the Earth city by city. As time passed, humans began to embrace Rita's reign. Tommy led Rita's forces into a final battle against the last battalion of Rangers just as Zordon was about to create a new Power Ranger more powerful than any previous one. Tommy broke into the command center while Jason was being infused with this new power, interrupting the process before it could finish. Then the two engaged in a final battle in which Tommy won. Tommy then stole the new power for himself and left the command center clutching Jason's broken helmet. Tommy and his army fought the Power Rangers until they defeated them and destroyed their Zords and then conquered the Earth in the name of Rita. This filled Tommy with ego and behind Rita's back he tried to dominate the Earth by himself. Then, Rita confidently taught Tommy all her spells and when he learned them all he betrayed Rita and eliminated her. Then, Tommy turned Finster into his servant and transformed him into a kind of cyborg called Finster 5 since he carried parts of Alpha 5. From here on, the Green Ranger stopped being Tommy and became Lord Drakkon, the most powerful and evil ranger ever seen. Lord Drakkon sought to create a super army, so he resorted to power coins and began to transform humans into soldiers with the costumes of different Power Rangers who each carried a different task called Ranger Sentries. On the other hand, the old Rangers created a resistance movement called the Coinless. But Kimberly the Pink Ranger had gone solo to try to avenge Billy's death at the hands of Drakkon's regime. When Lord Drakkon found Kimberly he casted a spell that Rita had taught him. He brainwashed her and turned her into his Ranger Slayer. After defeating the Coinless, known as the Power Rangers of his time, he sought to capture the Power Rangers of the alternate time, the time we know from the original series. Lord Drakkon managed to capture his counterpart, Tommy Oliver. He also captured Billy and Trini, the Blue and Yellow Power Rangers. These two formed a plan to stop Drakkon, and it's that the Trini of the reality of Lord Drakkon had hidden the last coin of power of the Billy of that reality, so using that coin, they created an energy explosion that eliminated both Drakkon and his Ranger Sentries by modifying the teleportation function. The energy blast released by the Morpher during this tactic shattered Drakkon's power coin, leaving Drakkon in a brief state of shock and insecurity over the loss of his power. Then, Lord Drakkon tries to goad his counterpart, Tommy Oliver, out of the reality we know, talking about how friendship is a weakness and Tommy's friends will eventually fail him when he needs them most. He refuses to listen and fights back against Drakkon. After Tommy's friends find him, rather than face defeat, Drakkon jumps off a cliff to what Tommy believes is his death. In that battle they were all in the universe of Lord Drakkon, who never died at that moment, but the energy of the portal takes him to the universe we all know. When he arrives in this universe, he is captured by soldiers of the United States government. After this he is locked in a subway cell in a complex called Promethea, which was created by Grace Sterling, the first Red Ranger we had talked about before. In this place he was kept with power restrictions and isolated from the outside world. In addition, he had guards at the entrance so that no one could enter the cell. Even so, this did not prevent the entrance of an unexpected guest who came from the same universe as Drakkon and who knew all the mess he had made. That guest was Saban, the White Ranger's sword, who appeared to take advantage of the opportunity to kill him. Saban fails and releases Drakkon, who rips Saba's head off and uses what's left to teleport back to his universe. In the future, we can already see what Lord Drakkon is going to do in the present, as the Power Rangers Time Force team discovers a rift in space. Wes warns that the rift is also affecting other universes. The Rangers approach with the Megazord, but it is attracted and devastated by the energy of the rift. Because of this, the blue, green and yellow Rangers are swallowed by the rift. Wes tells Jen that she must go to the past to find the connection point where this originated. Jen knew that Wes would be swallowed by the rift along with the Megazord, but she had no choice and went to the past. Before she left, she could see the Megazord disappear with Wes on board, and suddenly a wraith of Lord Drakkon appears and tries to catch her, but cannot. In the present, Jason and Tommy confront Grace about not telling them that she had Lord Drakkon locked up. Lord Drakkon then travels to Ninja's house and convinces him to help him repair his connection to the Morphin grid. This happens in the universe we know, and at that time the Rangers had not yet met Ninja, but Lord Drakkon comes from another universe where time is more advanced, which is why Drakkon did know of the existence of Ninja and managed to convince him with lies, telling him that he came from the future, and in that future, they were friends. After passing several tests, Ninja repairs the power coin and then Drakkon leaves him unconscious. At the command center, Billy and Trini try to repair the Black Dragon in order to warn Coinless of Lord Drakkon's possible return. The Coinless are those Rangers and people who survived in Lord Drakkon's universe and came together to confront him and help others. This is why Billy and Trini were working hard to repair the Black Dragon to warn them, but they had to take a break. At that moment, Lord Drakkon infiltrates the command center and steals the green Chaos Crystal. This crystal is used by Rita to cross dimensions by accessing the Morphin grid and can only be charged with energy with the power of the Green Ranger. This is why after Lord Drakkon steals this crystal, he goes in search of Tommy to be able to charge the crystal and have enough energy to open portals. At that moment, in another place, Kimberly and Tommy had taken a break from all the problems that were happening and had decided to go to the movies. They were trying to talk about other things, but in their heads, there was only the question of how they were going to defeat Lord Drakkon. After arriving at the place where they were going to take different roads to go home, Tommy tries to kiss Kimberly, but she tells him that it is not the right time and they each go home. After walking away, Kimberly realizes that she did want the kiss and goes back to look for Tommy, but finds a bitter surprise. Lord Drakkon had appeared and pierced Tommy with Saba to fill the crystal with energy. Kimberly morphs and begins to fight Drakkon, but at that very moment, Jen, the Pink Ranger from the future, appears. Jen attacks Lord Drakkon with her weapon, but he opens a portal with the crystal and leaves. Kimberly tries to help Tommy and asks him to please not die. Tommy says his last words, but stops breathing. Regardless of Kimberly's desperate plea for help, Jen tells him that there was nothing left to do, he was already dead. This is just the beginning of the shattered grid, and all the things Lord Drakkon is about to do. Many other stories are connected to this multiversal event, and this is why we will continue to study this story of Lord Drakkon, who has returned to his universe and was able to reunite with Finster. Lord Drakkon had combined Finster with parts of Alpha 5 and made him his right-hand man and his only supposed friend. When they met, they hugged and began to discuss future plans, but Finster tells him that although he will help him in any way Drakkon wants, he still doesn't have all the solutions. Lord Drakkon tells him that he has the person who will have all the solutions, and at that moment he shows Ninja, who had him locked in a small crystal tube. Now Zordon gathers the other Rangers in the command center, and they all watch as Alpha covers Tommy with energy. The Rangers think that Tommy is still alive, and that Alpha is just trying to save him. At that moment, Zordon tells the Rangers that Tommy was dead. Each Ranger had a different reaction, and they didn't know what they were going to do with the body. In the end, they decide to leave him in the same place where he died so that the police could find him, and his mother could mourn his death. Several days later they have a funeral to say goodbye to Tommy, and we can see how Jason is suffering a lot. At that moment, Alpha warns that Jen had woken up since after the fight with Drakkon she had been unconscious for several days. When Jen wakes up, she explains to the Rangers who she was and where she comes from. She also explains to them what happened in her time and shows them something very important. Jen teaches the Rangers that they inspired more Rangers for many years and explains what the timeline of all the Rangers was like. Because of the event that had started with Tommy's death, the Morphin grid had tried to protect itself and changed the timeline and locked each Ranger team into a kind of pocket universe so as not to create paradoxes. She also explains that the rift she saw in her time started in this time with Tommy's death, as that is like a small fracture that over time gets bigger until it breaks, just as it happened in the future. Kimberly presents the idea of traveling to the past to stop Lord Drakkon from killing Tommy, but Jen tells her that she can no longer travel to the past because of the rift and that everything from the past is now sealed. In the Samurai Rangers Pocket Universe, Lauren is practicing new moves, and at that moment Lord Drakkon arrives with a large army. The Samurai Rangers do not know who they are and feel confident as they have symbols of power that protect the house, but this was not enough, and Lord Drakkon manages to break through the shields. The Rangers begin to fight against the army and defend their house, but despite all the effort, the army manages to defeat them and take away their morphers. Lauren the Red Ranger manages to escape with the help of the Blue Ranger, and Lord Drakkon gives the order to look for her. In the midst of this chaos, Jen realizes that all this is happening, and thanks to Billy and Trini, they manage to repair and change certain things in the Black Dragon. Alpha was able to send them to that universe of the Samurai Rangers to help with the situation. The moment they arrive, they notice the army, and Zack wants to attack, but Jason tells him that they should be smart since the army managed to wipe out a team of Rangers. Jen realizes that there was one more Ranger, and they manage to save Lauren before the army takes her out. Elsewhere, Drakkon is working with Finster on his new plan, a combination of the morphers he took from the Samurai Rangers. Although Finster was unsure, Lord Drakkon told him to start the process, and, in the end, they achieved the result they wanted. Drakkon was filled with more power than before and with a new transformation. For this process they only needed one morpher, and Finster didn't know if they had to use all the other morphers of the samurai, but Drakkon tells him that thanks to Ninja he could understand that he doesn't need all the morphers, but one of each kind. The other morphers that are left over will be used with the whole army. The moment the Samurai Rangers fell, Zordon uses part of his reserve power to summon a meeting with the three emissaries. By using his remaining power, Zordon will no longer be able to join the Morphin grid when he dies. After calling the meeting, the three emissaries arrive, and Zordon begins to talk to them about the threat Lord Drakkon poses to everyone. Zordon asks them to talk to the Morphin Masters to disconnect Lord Drakkon from his power. The three emissaries tell Zordon that the Morphin Masters cannot get involved in human problems and cannot decide the fate of worlds. Zordon at that moment shows them all the achievements the Rangers have made and the great struggles they have gone through, as they have been warriors who have fought with courage and kindness. He also shows them how the Tommy Oliver from another dimension became Lord Drakkon, and how he was affecting all the other dimensions with armies and death. Even with all that Zordon showed them, the emissaries thought that these problems were just a grain of sand, and Zordon was seeing them as a mountain. They thought that the Rangers were going to be able to solve this problem alone, and that the Morphin Masters did not have to be involved. Zordon pleads with them one last time, but they just tell Zordon that they were waiting for the day when he would join them in the Morphin grid, but now it is not going to be possible because he used his remaining power to call that meeting. After sending Zordon back, the three emissaries begin to dialogue and doubt if they made a good decision or if it was a mistake, since Zordon is a great sage who would never play with these delicate issues. Lord Drakkon begins to invade all the pocket universes that have been created, and Jen realizes this. Alpha manages to make a connection so that Zordon can send a warning message to all the multiverses at the same time, and tells them about what Lord Drakkon is doing. At that point they receive a connection from Dr. K, a genius scientist who was the creator of the Power Rangers RPM arsenal. She tells them that she managed to connect with them despite belonging to a different dimension, and informs them that they have been under attack for 8 hours. She also tells them that they have managed to stop Lord Drakkon's cannons, and this has helped them to resist in the battle. Unfortunately, the connection is lost before she can help the Rangers of this dimension understand how to stop Lord Drakkon's cannons. Suddenly they receive a transmission from the Coinless and say they lost the base, but think they possibly have a way to stop Drakkon. The Rangers tell Alpha that they should go to Dr. K first so she can upgrade their morphers, but Alpha tells them that inside and outside of Corinthia they are blocking teleportation and could only manage to appear 15 kilometers away from there. Because other alternate universes were under attack, Jason gives the order to split up to visit 3 different locations at the same time. Zach, Trini, and Billy would go to the world of Drakkon to the coordinates of the Coinless. Jen and Kimberly would have to go find other Rangers who have survived to bring them to the command center of this universe. Jason and Lauren would go to Corinthia to find Dr. K to tell them how to stop Drakkon's cannons. Meanwhile, Drakkon from his base is dialoguing with Finster about all the morphers they have prepared to give more powers to Lord Drakkon at the same time. At that moment, Drakkon is remembering what happened in the Zeo Rangers universe. Drakkon had impersonated the Tommy from that universe and managed to obtain Adam's morpher without harming any Rangers. He also recalls conversations with Jason as he tells him how he feels about Tommy and how he has been a great example to the other Rangers. At the end, before leaving back to his base, Drakkon has a conversation with the real Tommy from that universe and tells him that he doesn't understand how the other Rangers idolize him and then murder him. This is something Lord Drakkon also tells Finster as he fails to understand what it is about Tommy that makes others love him. Finster tells him that love is something that should never make sense. At that moment, one of the soldiers arrives and tells Drakkon that Dr. K had discovered how to evade the cannons. Because of this event, Lord Drakkon decides to bring more reinforcements to Corinth, but this is to be after his transfer of power. Jason and Lauren arrive in Corinthia in a part of the desert, and then Jason calls the Rex to help them on the journey. On that trip, Jason and Lauren talk about their lives to get to know each other better and realize all that Lord Drakkon has damaged. In the world of the Coinless, Zach, Billy and Trini arrive in a destroyed world. At first, they couldn't recognize where they were because of the destruction, but then they realized they were in the Angel Grove juice bar. At that moment the Coinless arrive and tell them that Skull was undercover for a long time inside Lord Drakkon's troops. Skull was able to see everything that was going on inside the base and realized that Ninja was being held under a spell. The Rangers of this universe don't know who Ninja is since they live in a later time than the Coinless, so they had not yet met Ninja. The Coinless explain who Ninja is and say that he is the key to defeating Drakkon. The mission is to save Ninja. Meanwhile in Corinthia, the RPM Ranger operators are battling against Lord Drakkon's army, who are now also samurai because of the morphers they have stolen. In the middle of the battle, a noise is heard, and it was Jason with the Zord coming to help the Rangers. Jason and Lauren manage to wipe out the few remaining soldiers and exit the Zord to meet up with Dr. K. The Ranger operators talk to Jason to find out who they are, but he tells them there is no time and tells Dr. K that they must take her to his dimension. Suddenly, Lord Drakkon appears with his new army, including the Psycho Rangers and several others. Now we can see a Lord Drakkon with a slightly different transformation, sporting some black parts. We can also see SPD Squad A, and behind Drakkon is Korag the Wolf Knight, a villain from Power Rangers Mystic Force. Elsewhere, Kimberly and Jen are traveling through space and have a conversation about the side effects of time travel. Jen tells Kimberly that although she is hoping for a miracle, they really can't save Tommy anymore, and that even if that were to happen, still, things are never the same again. Kimberly and Jen come across Terra Venture, the Galaxy Rangers base, and descend to go see what had happened there. Although the place looks empty, they find a sign of life for the moment and surprisingly meet Astronema. She had been one of the worst threats in the universe, but at that point they were way ahead in time, and Astronema had already been reformed and turned into a Pink Ranger. Each pocket universe is at a different point in time, and this is why Jen is a bit confused, as she is not the Ranger she expected. Kimberly and Jen take Astronema to the Zord, and there is when we can see that there are many other Rangers that they have been able to rescue. At that moment, they receive a message from Alpha saying that Jason and Lauren arrived in Corinth and found Dr. K, but they need all the help they can get as they were currently battling Lord Drakkon and his entire army. Meanwhile, Dr. K has been able to change Lauren's morpher so that she can resist Lord Drakkon's cannons, and that is why she makes her attack with a big explosion. On the other hand, in Drakkon's command center are the Coinless along with the other Rangers trying to make a plan to rescue Ninja. Zack from the Coinless and Zack from this dimension are having a dialogue as they feel weird to be able to see each other. Then, they both enter the command center to rescue Ninja with the help of Skull. Back at the Corinthian battle, several Rangers try to attack Drakkon at the same time, but he throws a great energy at them with his sword, and they all fall to the ground. Drakkon removes the morpher from RPM's Yellow Ranger since he didn't have a morpher like that yet. At that moment, the other Rangers arrive along with Kimberly and Jen, but Drakkon's cannons take away her powers. Now the supposed help has been for nothing. Jason pleads with Dr. K that they should stand down as she is very important, and the Rangers can do nothing more. The doctor tells Jason that in order to teleport from there without leaving the city, they must destroy the building. At the Drakkon base, both Zack and Skull manage to free Ninja from the spell, but unfortunately Finster discovers them and sends the soldiers to shoot. The shot was going straight for the younger Zack, the one from this dimension, but the older Zack, the one from the Coinless, pushes him away and gets shot. Skull sacrifices himself and tells Zack to leave with Ninja as he is the last hope. In Corinthia, Jason manages to break the building with the Zord, but it is badly damaged. At that moment, Jason asks Alpha to teleport them back to the command center. On the other side, Zack arrives with Ninja and gives the bad news to the others of what had happened. Then, Alpha teleports them all at the same time. Back at the command center, some Rangers along with Zordon, Ninja and Commander Kruger talk about Lord Drakkon's plan and how damaged the Morphin grid is. Ninja tells them that Drakkon is weakening the grid so he can get to the heart. All the signals are sent from his tower to constantly transmit through the grid. Jason then introduces the group to Grace and Dr. K so they can both help figure out how to stop Drakkon. Just then, a ship arrives at the command center and all the Rangers freak out as the command center is in a pocket dimension of pure energy. Out of the ship comes Andrus, the Red Ranger from Power Rangers in Space and the person who killed Zordon to save the universe. Andrus tells the Rangers that he already knows where the other Rangers they kidnapped are. On the other side, Drakkon is very angry about Ninja's release and now he has kidnapped Skull. At that moment, Finster tells him that he managed to find Ranger Slayer, but they can't look for her since she is way back in time. Drakkon asks her to communicate with her somehow, and Finster manages to open a portal so they can talk. Drakkon begins to talk to her, but Finster realizes that Kimberly is no longer under the spell, and Drakkon tells her that this will be the last time they see each other. In the command center, the tension can be felt, and as Grace repairs the morphers, Jason tries to make peace with her. Just then Kruger arrives to discuss the plan of attack and says they need a big ship, and Grace offers TerraVenture. Alpha interrupts them to give them the news that other Rangers from other dimensions were answering the call he had put out through the grid. When they go outside, they see one of the most incredible images of all time. Many Rangers arriving from space to join the coming war. Many Rangers from all eras come together answering Alpha's call to defeat Lord Drakkon. A very epic and emotional moment for everyone, as this is the help they needed. Although the initial plan is to destroy Drakkon's tower, they still have no plan to defeat him. This is why Zordon has been thinking for a long time about a plan to defeat him, but at the same time it is still very dangerous. Zordon pays a visit to Rita together with Commander Kruger to ask her to help them stop Drakkon, because if he destroys reality, then he would also be destroying her reality. On the other hand, Drakkon prepares for battle by melting the ninja steel and transforming Saba. Back at the command center, many Rangers start getting to know each other, and Jason prepares to give a big motivational speech to all the Rangers before the war begins. After the speech, he gives the dragon powers to Kimberly so she can control the Zord. When they arrive on the moon, they are surprised by the great amount of soldiers that Lord Drakkon now had, since he didn't have so many before, and then the battle begins. In Drakkon's command center are Zordon, Rita, Ninja, and Kruger, as they must be in the center of Drakkon's energy to be able to do the magic. During the battle, the Rangers realize that Drakkon's sword can now steal the others' powers. At that moment, Serpentera, Lord Zed's Super Megazord, awakens, but is now controlled by Drakkon. Quickly, Serpentera destroys several Zords in one bite due to the large size difference. Several Rangers try to attack Drakkon, but he takes away his powers in one blow with his sword. Surprisingly, Kimberly throws the Dragon's Word with the power bow straight at Drakkon's chest, and although he thought it had not caused him anything, he suddenly becomes very weak and returns to his command center to then find the surprise that Rita, Zordon, Ninja, and Kruger were waiting for him. Rita had cast a spell with a candle, just like she did with the Green Ranger, to take away his powers. At that moment, Rita says that she is not going to wait any longer and plans to take his life right there, but Zordon and Kruger start to complain to her, telling her that this was not the plan. At that moment, Finster arrives to save Drakkon, and with Lord Zed's staff he gives an energy shock to everyone. Finster tries to get rid of the candle, but Drakkon tells him it is useless as the candle continues to consume his powers. Drakkon tells Finster to fill it with the power of all the other morphers, but Finster tells him that it is unstable since he only needs one morpher from each group. Drakkon thanks Finster for being concerned for his life, but then Drakkon breaks his neck. Outside there is a terrible war, but Drakkon goes in search of all the morphers to fill himself with power and presses the button to begin the transfer. The war continues and the Rangers try to take down the tower, but Serpentera, Lord Zed's sword that Drakkon now controls, prevents them from getting there. The Rangers, in search of a solution, decide that they are going to combine several Zords from different dimensions and eras so that they can be a good opponent to stop Serpentera. Jen does the math and decides which Zords to use and asks the Rangers to name them. This unnamed Zord, they make it grow to the same size as Serpentera, and Jason asks Noah, the Blue Megaforce Ranger, to summon his Zord so he can use it to destroy the tower. When Jason enters the Zord, he asks the Rangers who are handling the giant Super Mega Zord to stop Serpentera so he can approach the tower and shoot. At that moment, they restrain Serpentera and Jason prepares to shoot, but Serpentera manages to escape. Jason fires the shot, and at that very moment Serpentera destroys the Zord in one bite. Everyone is surprised because no one knows if Jason is alive or dead, although no one saw him get out of the Zord. With the shot, they manage to destroy the tower, and the giant Super Mega Zord pierces Serpentera with the sword. At that moment, the sky is destroyed, and from the crack comes out a giant Lord Drakkon with a different transformation. In this transformation we can see that his entire suit is black and gold with the heart of the Morphin grid on his chest. They all start to enter the ship to get out of that dimension, including Ranger Slayer, who was accompanying them at that moment. When they are all in the ship, they try to leave that dimension, but all of a sudden, a glow covers them completely. At that moment, time changes and transforms into a new reality created by Lord Drakkon, where Rita is his mother, Zordon is his father, and Kruger is his dog. In this reality, Drakkon is treated as a hero and as the most glorious thing. Suddenly, Kruger starts barking and Drakkon realizes that there is a threat outside and he must go out to fight. Drakkon makes his morph with the heart of the Morphin grid embedded in his chest and realizes that the threats are a tiger and a hawk in energy form. We also get to see the Dragon Zord and White Tiger Zord controlled by Jen, but they don't attack the energy animals. As they say, Drakkon has everything under control. Drakkon attacks the animals and sends them to the bottom of the sea, and then is interviewed by reporters like a hero. Among those reporters were Trini and Zack, who treat Drakkon as the only hero there is. Zack asks Drakkon if he is worried that animals are attacking more and more often, and he gets angry about this question because he says that he will not allow anything to hurt the people of his world. At that moment, he hears a voice asking him,
"Even if your world is a lie?"
That was the voice of the real Tommy Oliver appearing from the reflection of the glass of a camera lens, telling him that nothing of that world should exist. Tommy's voice could only be heard by Drakkon, and this is why when Drakkon responds, the reporters were confused. Drakkon decides to end the interviews and leaves the place. We then get to see that Finster is the butler and Billy has become Drakkon's mechanic. In addition to this, Jason and Lauren have a ninja academy to teach others about carrying Lord Drakkon's message. At that moment, Finster warns him that there is another attack from the energy animals. Now among the animals there is a bear, which gives Drakkon a hard blow that knocks him to the ground while he keeps hearing Tommy's voice claiming him about that fake world. At every moment of the battle, Drakkon keeps seeing Tommy in every reflection he has near him, which tells him that he can't even defeat a hallucination, even though he still thinks he is a god. At that moment, Drakkon launches an energy beam that destroys part of a building and breaks all the crystals, while Tommy keeps tormenting him, telling him that he is weak since he killed all the Tommies from all dimensions to create this false reality. Drakkon goes crazy saying that Tommy is not real and starts destroying everything he finds. In the background, the voices of the three emissaries are heard saying that this is the opportunity they were waiting for, and suddenly Tommy comes out of the reflection of one of the broken glasses on the floor. Tommy now had a physical form and goes in search of the Power Rangers to make them wake up from that false reality. He then arrives at Kimberly's workplace, who was working as a waitress, and kneels when she sees Tommy, thinking he is Drakkon. Tommy frees her mind and brings back all the memories that had happened throughout the battle against Lord Drakkon, including Tommy's death. At that moment the other Rangers appear. Elsewhere, at Drakkon's house, he tells Finster that his world rejects him as he can see the energy beasts getting stronger and his mind is betraying him. Finster tells him that he just needs to relax as he has been working hard and should leave in the car as Billy finished repairing it. He also tells him that he hasn't seen Billy since he left with him. At that point Drakkon realizes that something wasn't right since he hadn't been looking for Billy. Then we can see that Tommy begins to tell his story and says that it all started when the Ranger Slayer from Drakkon's world saved him and told him that when the time was right, he would understand. She had thrown an arrow at him that contained a shard of the green chaos crystal, the same crystal that Drakkon used to charge him killing Tommy. This caused that crystal inside him to activate and pull Tommy's essence out of time and space. His soul was in nothingness, and he could only be a spectator, watching Drakkon gain ground and defeat them while he could do nothing. Tommy then introduces the Rangers to the three emissaries and tells them that he was able to wake them up and connect them back to the Morphin grid. The three emissaries began to apologize because due to their arrogance they did not realize that such a powerful being could have come and defeated them and took the heart of one of the masters inside the Morphin grid. When he obtained this heart, Drakkon made whole universes disappear and created this new false reality. Despite everything, the emissaries managed to escape from the Morphin grid and arrived at the same space where Tommy was. From there, they began to gather forces and plan how they were going to infiltrate Drakkon's new world. Tommy says that the energy animals are the doubts that destroy Lord Drakkon inside him, and the only way to defeat him is to remove the heart of the Morphin grid. At that moment, Lord Drakkon enters and starts attacking the Rangers in a terrible way. Then Lauren and Jen arrive in the Dragon Zord and the White Tiger Zord, and Tommy gives them the order to attack him with everything. While Drakkon was distracted with the Zords, Tommy seizes the moment and removes the Morphin grid's heart from its chest. Because of this, they both run out of powers and enter an empty place where they begin to fight, and Tommy manages to defeat Drakkon. At that moment, reality begins to be destroyed and the emissaries open a portal so that the Rangers can escape. In spite of everything, Tommy tries to save Drakkon, but Drakkon turns his back, and the emissaries take Tommy away. Now they are all inside the Morphin grid, and the emissaries tell them that they can't use the Morphin grid to rebuild reality, but the Rangers can, although many things will never be the same again. They also realize that if they go back to the way things were before, then they will have no memory of what happened. Despite this, the Rangers decide that they must return everything to the way it was, as it would save all the worlds. This means that Lauren and Jason's relationship will never happen, and neither of them will remember what happened. Now the shattered grid is back to normal and again the Power Rangers save everyone, but this time including universes and other dimensions. The Death Rangers story is solely in the Power Rangers comics published by Boom Studio. For those who don't know Power Rangers comics, I can tell you that they have very interesting stories with an adult focus. We all know that Power Rangers on TV is aimed at a younger audience, and that is why the stories are simple. In the TV series there are no complex stories, as they should be stories for all ages, but the comics have deeper stories. The story of the Death Ranger is a story that talks about death and acceptance when the people who leave this world will never return. Thousands of years ago there were 5 Omega Rangers, which were red, yellow, blue, black, and gold. This is different from what we know today, since now there are only 4, since the gold color is not there, and the existence of a gold Omega Ranger had never been known until now. We are going to focus on 2 Omega Rangers in this story, the gold and the blue. These 2 Omega Rangers were friends, but they were 2 very different beings from different planets. The Gold Ranger comes from a planet that does not understand death, since for them it does not exist. This does not mean that they are immortal, but rather that when a person dies, they say that their journey in life is over. This is because when a person dies, their soul joins a collective consciousness which they call the legacy. When these souls join this collective consciousness, what happens is that all the people who remain alive can hear all the dead in their minds, and that is why they do not understand death, since they continue to hear the voice of the person who died. Imagine you have a person you love and then they die, but you can still have a conversation in your mind with that person. This is not similar to the imagination, since we ourselves control everything there. This is different, since the deceased person is really going to respond to you. It's basically like you're on the phone with the dead, since you can't see their body, but you can hear their voice and have a conversation. It is also how these beings on this planet live with dead people inside their minds, and that is why they do not understand death or loneliness. The Gold Omega Ranger, called Spark, was suffering since being very far from his planet, he could not hear the voices of this collective conscience. It was the first time he felt loneliness, although he really wasn't alone, since he lived with the other Rangers. For him it was a different loneliness, since he was used to hearing all these people in his head, and now he didn't hear anything. His friend, the Blue Ranger, tried to cheer him up and explain that he really wasn't alone, that there was a lot of life around them, but even so Spark couldn't understand this. At that moment a giant enemy attacked them and killed the Blue Ranger before she could transform. At first Spark did not feel the death of his friend and never cried, since he thought that her soul was going to connect to the collective consciousness, and he was going to be able to continue connected to her. Obviously, this didn't happen, since she was from another planet, and little by little Spark began to get depressed because it was the first time he had that feeling of emotional pain. All Rangers deal with pain in different ways, but Spark wanted to find a solution to that pain. After a few days, the Rangers had to stop a monster that was similar to a giant mouth, but it was really a portal that led to the darkest with a lot of knowledge. This monster told Spark that it could help him with his problem, so Spark got closer than anyone ever had. The Rangers were able to defeat the monster and lock it up, but it was too late. With the dark knowledge that Spark had found in that portal, he began to experiment with the energy of the Morphin grid. With this energy he could give life to everything that was already dead, but Spark did not understand the consequences of this. After supposedly mastering this energy, he quickly went to the Blue Ranger's grave to revive her. The other Rangers noticed this and quickly went looking for him, but it was too late. Spark had revived the Blue Ranger. Even though she was alive, the Blue Ranger seemed like a lifeless puppet that Spark was simply controlling with the new power. Spark was happy because her friend was alive, but the other Rangers tried to explain to her that this was wrong since she should be dead. That was her place now and she had to learn to accept it. Spark refused to accept the death of his friend, so the Black Ranger began to treat him like any other threat from space and attacked him. At that moment the Blue Ranger attacked the Black Ranger since Spark was controlling her. After this, Spark woke up all the dead that were buried in that same place and he could control them all. The Omega Rangers had to transform to start fighting with all these living skeletons controlled by Spark, which now becomes the Death Ranger. Even though Spark was able to control the dead, he couldn't fully control the Blue Ranger, who broke free and started attacking Spark. In that moment of weakness, all the other dead broke free as well, started chasing Spark, seized his blaster, and shot him. With this shot, all the connection of the new power vanished and the Blue Ranger was sorry for what had happened since that was not what she wanted. Again, she started to die as she was only alive due to the Death Ranger's power, but at the same time Spark also started to die. When Spark died, his soul was seeking to join the collective consciousness like all the people on his planet, but being away from his planet, his soul couldn't connect to the collective consciousness. Because of this, her soul was attached to the Morpher since it was the only thing that could keep her, and then the Omega Rangers hid this Morpher. After the destruction of the command center, after the Eltarian War, Kimberly, Rocky, Adam, Aisha, Billy, Tommy, Alpha 5 and Zordon are in the headquarters. We can see that the whole command center was smashed to pieces and the Rangers are a bit worried, except Rocky, who already started to pick up and clean up the whole place. If you saw the destruction of the command center in the TV series, then you know that it has a place underground that is more protected. Zordon explains that the place below is called the Power Chamber and it is the place that allows the Rangers to connect to the Morphin grid. The upstairs part of the command center that we have always known is important as well, as it was for communication, surveillance and protection of the Power Chamber. Without that top part, then the Rangers are exposed, and anyone can attack them so they can't reconnect to the Morphin grid. Although we all thought, including the Rangers, that there was only one command center in the entire universe, Zordon and Alpha 5 explained that it was a basic Eltarian command center and there are many just like it. Because of this, The Rangers decide to travel into space in search of another command center, since without such a place the Earth is in danger. Zordon states that even though Lord Zed helped them in the previous war, he still seeks the destruction of the Power Rangers. Rocky returns home to talk to his mother, and she tells him that she needs him to stay home to take care of his siblings since she must travel, otherwise she will lose her job. Rocky tries to make excuses that he has a school trip since he knows they must travel to space to find the command center. At that moment Rocky's sister arrives, very surprised, as if something was happening with the moon. When they all look up at the sky, they realize the moon was disappearing. But Rocky says that's a problem for the next day. In Promethea we can see Grace, the first Red Ranger and creator of the Terra Venture ship, repairing the place and receives a call from Dr. Zaskin, who confirms that the moon did not disappear, but was camouflaged. Then inside Promethea we can see Zordon, Billy and Tommy, who went looking for help, and tell Grace that they need her protection as the power chamber is at risk. They also asked her for an Elter ship and 10,000 megawatts. Grace agrees to help them since the Green Ranger, who is not Tommy, comes from Promethea, and he also needs the Morphin grid to access his powers. On the ship, Tommy and Aisha are getting ready, then Rocky arrives and tells them that he won't be able to go on the trip. Rocky thought he was going to disappoint the others, but they are relieved as they were planning for a ranger to stay and guard the power chamber along with Promethea's workers, so Rocky agrees to be the last line of defense. The ship takes off, and quickly, without wasting time, Rocky is attacked by robots that only had his face, a tire and arms with laser weapons. These robots are different in that they can learn from their mistakes and continue to be better warriors. Rocky transforms and begins to destroy as many robots as he can, but they start to become too many for him alone. As Rocky tries to attack, another robot blasts him with a laser beam from behind and knocks him to the ground. One of the robots sends a message with a request asking if he should neutralize or eliminate him, but he is given the order to eliminate Rocky. At that moment, a green lightning bolt explodes all the robots that were around. At that moment, Matthew Cook arrives, the Green Ranger who works with Promethea, who also wants to defend the power chamber. Rocky is very worried and hurt. He tells Matthew that the other Rangers have already left, and he is afraid that the robots will return, but Matthew tells him that he is not alone. One of the robots continues to send images to its owner, which is King Aridin, and he sent the robots to confirm the destruction of the command center. Now the king knows that the command center is destroyed and vulnerable, that Lord Zed has retreated from the site, and that most of the Rangers are off-planet. This is the perfect opportunity to conquer Earth and destroy the Power Rangers forever, along with their source of connection on Earth. King Aridin is the worst enemy of King Mondo, the leader of the Machine Empire. King Aridin is briefly mentioned in Power Rangers Zeo, but his major appearance is in the comics. Back on the ship, Alpha 5 gathers all the Rangers, although he feels strange doing so without Zordon. Alpha tells them that he found a planet that was once inhabited by Eltarians, but they left 30 years ago. This gives the Rangers the advantage that they can find a command center without having to battle anyone and fight a battle they can't win. This planet is called Aegis 5, which is covered entirely with water. This means that the command center they are looking for is underwater, which presents a greater challenge for the Rangers. The most difficult part of the situation is that the command center is not at shallow depth, but is far away from the surface, which makes it even more difficult to get there and even more difficult to take the command center. At this point in the story, the Imperial's threat is over, the blue emissary is missing, and Robot 11 is out of commission. Omega Rangers Jason, Zack, Trini and Yale are in Safe Haven, which is a safe place at the point of eternity. Now without the blue emissary, the Rangers must find a way to work alone. Jason searches the computer for signals to find Lord Drakkon and his ship, but the computer tells him that there is nothing. Still, Jason keeps faith that he will find him. At the lab, Trini is still working tirelessly to try to repair 11 and is on video call with Billy to try to help her by telling her what to do. Even so, Billy's advice is still not working as he is relying on the workings of Alpha 5. They both manage to turn 11 on, but apparently, she has no memories and that doesn't work for them. In a secret room full of weapons are Zack and Archon, a respected elder in Safe Haven who has a direct connection to the Morphin grid. They both realize that someone has stolen a weapon, and Archon tells Zack that more things have gone missing recently. Zack acknowledges that it is a place with a lot of inhabitants, but still asks Archon if he has any suspects in mind, and Archon says yes. Zack goes in search of that suspect, which is Kever, a Hartunian who was stealing fruit at the time. Zack gives him a chance to return the weapon he stole without having to do it the hard way, but Kever throws the fruit in his face and flees. After a quick chase, Kever hides and Zack thinks he lost him, but surprisingly manages to catch him. Although Kever continues to deny that he is the thief of the gun, Zack continues to insist and tells him that if he doesn't take him to where the gun is, he will lock him up for several centuries. Back at the lab, Trini keeps trying to bring 11's memories back, but nothing has worked. Even 11 can talk and do everything normally, but it's like it's a new system. At that moment, Trini gets a call from Billy, who was running a diagnostic on 11's entire system, but everything was normal. The only thing he could find is that a user was blocking 11's memories. Trini is confused since she didn't do it and knows that Jason or Zack wouldn't know how to do that. Then, the unexpected happens. 11 tells Trini that he is blocking his own memories, as she had told him that he has seen many terrible things, worlds destroyed and many people who have lost their lives. Because of this, 11 doesn't want to have to think about all that again and tells Trini that he doesn't need all those memories to be a good Omega Ranger's assistant. This is 11's final decision, and he tells Trini that if he can't respect that, then he should pull the plug. Elsewhere, Jason continues to work with the computer searching for the Wraith 2 ship and Lord Drakkon, but the computer tells him it has found nothing. At that moment, Yale enters chasing a flying jellyfish and interrupts the search and the computer setup. Yale runs off to the roof of the place and Jason goes after him and notices everything that Yale has destroyed. He then climbs up to the roof very angry and is amazed at all the flying jellyfish he sees in the sky. Continuing with Zack, Kevert and Archon, they go in search of the stolen weapon and Kevert directs them to where he lives now as he says his parents died in Hartunia and he was forced to travel and was abandoned in Safe Haven. Unfortunately, no one wanted another mouth to feed, and they passed Kevert from family to family until he found that place where he lives now. When they arrive, Kevert tells them that inside is the gun and asks them to find it and leave him alone. When they enter the house, they realize that Kevert had stolen more things than they had thought. We can even see that there is a king's crown, an Eltarian warrior's helmet and even a Red Ranger's helmet. At that moment, Kevert appears with the weapon and threatens them as he says he must be prepared when the beings that destroyed their planet arrive. Zack and Archon tell him that he is safe there as the Imperials no longer exist. They start fighting and Kevert starts telling Zack that the Omega Rangers are the only thing holding Safe Haven together. If the Omega Rangers leave, then people are going to start fighting each other and form a war for power. Kevert gives Zack a hard blow and tells him that he has nothing left to do but survive in that place. At that moment, Archon takes a swing at Kevert and takes away his weapon to save Zack. Kevert thought that Archon would take his life, but surprisingly he tells him his story and tells him that when he arrived on that planet, he had nothing because of the Hartunians and yet he decided to make Safe Haven his home and swore to protect it. Besides that, he tells him that he cannot protect the planet alone and needs help. Then, Archon extends his hand and offers him a home and a purpose to live. After that, the 4 Omega Rangers meet at the computer site and begin to talk about the future of the Omega Rangers and the other planets. Trini tells Jason that he must change since he has spent every day and every hour on the computer looking for Drakkon and they must leave the past behind and focus on other things and other worlds that need the Omega Rangers. Surprisingly, Jason agrees with Trini and tells her that Yale helped him realize everything he was missing. Then, the Omega Rangers start sending a message to all the planets in the universe to tell all the inhabitants that they are not alone and that the Omega Rangers are going to protect the weak and warn the villains that they are not going to continue abusing the weak. In one of those worlds, we can see Andrus, the Red Ranger from in space, but in another world, we can see the followers of Vox, a powerful villain who had already had problems with the Omega Rangers. These villains were destroying a planet and sacrificing the inhabitants when they received the message and decided to track the signal to know the exact location of the Rangers because they want their revenge. After Zordon was at Promethea asking Grace for help, he now returns to the command center which we know is destroyed. Promethea employees are cleaning up the place to get everything ready before the Rangers find a new command center. After a bit of a bumpy ride, Zordon arrives at his destination. Matthew the Green Ranger greets him and opens the doors. One of Promethea's employees helps move Zordon's tube out of the truck but drops it in a very silly way. The Green Ranger gets upset with the Promethea employee and Zordon thanks him for all his help. but Matthew is still upset with Zordon since he had previously told him that he was going to take the power coin from him. Zordon and Prometheus' relationship has never been very good, and this is why he doesn't have a good relationship with Grace and Matthew. Because of this, Zordon talks to Grace and thanks her for all the help, plus he also apologizes for all the things he has said and done. Grace does not receive the apology very well, even though she has been waiting for many years for Zordon to apologize to her. Now we can see Matthew from a very high place talking on a cell phone with Rocky, and we can see the place surrounded by a force field to protect the power chamber. This force field is created with the help of the Megazords because even though they are damaged, they still work to channel the energy. In their conversation, Matthew realizes that Rocky is a bit busy, and it is because he is taking care of his siblings, and Matthew offers to help him. In Aegis 5, the Rangers are looking for the command center, which is underwater, and somehow they have oxygen thanks to the Morphin grid. The Rangers are divided into two teams. Team 1 are Tommy, Adam and Aisha. They are swimming through several caves to try to get some access to the inside of the command center and find out if there is anything dangerous inside. Team 2 consists of Billy and Kimberly, who are searching for the exact location of the command center from above. Team 1 mysteriously finds a cave full of alien eggs, which they find to be mysterious because, if there are eggs, then there may be life on that supposedly abandoned planet. Now Team 2 was able to find the exact location of the command center, but Team 1 is still suspicious that there is something fishy going on as the mission is going too easy. At that moment, the Rangers are surrounded by an alien species from that planet, who don't look so happy that the Rangers are invading. Back on Earth at Rocky's house, all his siblings are getting ready to leave for another location and are waiting for a special guest. It should be noted that Rocky's family obviously doesn't know that he is a Power Ranger. At that moment, someone knocks on the door, and when they open it, it is the Green Ranger coming to take them all to another place. Back on Aegis 5, the Rangers begin to fight with the inhabitants of that planet, who are very angry because they think that the Rangers are Eltarians coming to invade and enslave them. The Rangers were looking for the command center, which is a surveillance center created by Eltarians, and in addition to this, they also arrived at that planet in an Eltarian ship, and it is because of this that the inhabitants of the planet think that the Rangers are from Eltar. Aisha manages to stop the fight and tells the planet's leader that they are not from Eltar and that they only came to look for the command center. Unfortunately, for the Rangers, that command center is what is protecting the eggs of these inhabitants, so they are never going to let them take the command center. Even so, Aisha convinces them to let them enter the command center to look for information about the location of other command centers for them to travel to those other planets, and the planet's leader only allows Billy and Aisha to enter. On the way inside the command center, the leader tells them that the Eltarians offered them many things in exchange for them to join their troops, supposedly for peacekeeping, but in reality, it was for wars. Because of this, this planet was almost extinct, and this made the Eltarians leave, This is why the inhabitants of this planet hid, so that the Eltarians would continue to think that there is no life there. When they arrived inside the command center, we can see that there is a giant bubble that protects the offspring of these aliens, and the leader of the planet tells the Rangers to look for everything they need because this will be the last time someone will enter that place. While Billy begins to look for coordinates of other command centers, Aisha tells him that she has never seen him worried about losing his powers, but Billy tells her that he has never been worried about that. He is worried about losing his friends and sees the world in a different way, because when he sees places like that planet, he can realize that there is something bigger than power weapons and Zords. On Earth now is Matthew, Rocky and his family at the site of the old command center. One of the twins is talking to Zordon and asking him very uncomfortable questions as he asks him about where his arms are. Rocky, very embarrassed, goes to find him quickly and acts as if he has never met Zordon, as his family doesn't know he is a ranger. Inside the offices is Rocky's sister and he meets Grace. She starts to tell him that Grace has a lot of money and wants some advice on how she can make it too. At that moment, when Grace goes to tell her, they start to feel a strong wind, and it is that a strange ship was coming to the place. Grace leaves the conversation halfway through and goes out to investigate what was going on. She asks Dr. Zaskin about the ship and who is driving it, but the doctor tells her that he finds no signs of life. This confused Grace a lot, and the most confusing thing is that the doctor also tells her that this is contradictory, since from the ship they sent a message saying that the new ruler of planet Earth has arrived, and he expects us to have prepared a proper throne. At that moment, we can see King Aridin and his servants get off the ship, who want to conquer the Earth, taking advantage of the fact that Lord Zed and the Rangers are not there, besides the fact that the Earth is vulnerable without the command center. Back in Safe Haven are the Omega Rangers, but while Zack and Trini are sleeping, Jason and Yale are training hard. Then, when Jason arrives back at the house, Zack and Trini are already awake, but a little cranky as they are still tired. While Jason prepares his breakfast, he tells the Rangers that they should enjoy this paradise because they can do whatever they want, without lies and without hiding their identity, but Trini only thinks that they still have a big responsibility because they must protect the universe. Now, the Rangers go to the Point of Eternity and talk to 11 to know if they received any response from the message they had sent to all the planets. The Rangers receive responses from 2 different planets. On the first one there is no sign of life, and it can only be a ship that was stranded on that planet. The second response comes from planet KO-35 and is an urgent emergency signal, as there are attacks with large weapons all over the planet. The Rangers decide to split up in order to travel to the 2 planets, so first, it's Morphin time. On the first planet, which is located in the Mindrose system, we can see Zack and Trini looking for the emergency signal, but it takes them a while to find the ship that is emitting this signal. We can see that the ship they found is destroyed, and the Rangers feel that this could be a trap. Because of this, Trini decides to enter the ship alone, so Zack stays outside watching. Inside the ship, Trini realizes that the signal was disabled and there are only dead bodies. She also tells 11 that the escape pod is gone, which means someone had to use it and may still be nearby and need help. Zack is outside the ship and finds the engine but realizes that it is unstable and could explode at any moment. Suddenly, a loud noise is heard outside the ship which scares Trini very much. At that moment, a giant winged monster appears, probably the one that destroyed the ship, and wants to attack the Rangers, but they invoke the Omegazord power. Now in the second emergency location, on planet KO-35, Jason and Yale are looking for the problem. Jason thinks that there was a big war going on there, many lives were lost and apparently the Rangers were too late. At that moment, Yale can smell that something bad is happening and Jason feels that they walked right into an ambush. Suddenly, aliens called the Zurichs appear, and they are looking for a ranger, but they recognize that Jason is not the ranger they are looking for. Still, they threaten him and tell him that if Jason goes with them then Yale won't suffer when they eat him. The battle begins and Jason tells Zurichs that he always tells Yale to hold back, but this time he won't tell him anything. In the middle of the battle Jason asks what they did to the planet, and they tell him that they ate everyone and it's the same thing they do to all the planets. While the Rangers are still fighting, we can see someone hiding in the shadows watching everything. Back in Mindro, the Rangers are fighting with their Omegazords against the ferocious giant beast, and no matter how many blows they have given it, the beast is still going forward very angry. Trini decides to tie the beast with chains and throw it towards the ship. Because the ship's engine was unstable, everything explodes, and the Rangers manage to finish off the monster. After that hard battle, 11 tells the Rangers that he found the escape pod of the ship that had just exploded. The Rangers go to the location and manage to find the capsule, but when they open it, they get a big surprise. Inside the capsule is an alien baby. In KO-35, the Rangers are still fighting with the Zurichs, and after so much arguing, in the end only one of the aliens is left. This last alien tries to run, but suddenly he is attacked with a laser beam and Jason gets scared since he was not the one who launched the laser beam. The one who launched the beam was the same one who was watching the battle from the shadows hiding and tells the Rangers that they must leave before more aliens arrive. Still, Jason demands that he needs to know who it is, so the person takes off his hood and to everyone's surprise it is Andrus, the Red Ranger from in space. At this point in the story, Jason does not know Andrus, and for those who do not know Andrus should know that Andrus comes from the planet KO-35, and that is why he calls the Omega Rangers to this planet to help him save what is left. Back at Safe Haven, the Rangers took the baby to the lab to verify that all was well. The capsule had the baby asleep in a deep sleep, and 11 says it may be many hours or many days before she wakes up. One very important detail that 11 says is that the baby's metabolic system is very fast. Then, Zack and Trini have a call with Jason. They talk about what is going on with the baby and that the computer records have no information on the species of that alien. They also ask Jason if he needs help, but he tells them that Andrus told him that no ship can go in as it may alert enemies. Zack and Trini are worried as they don't know who Andrus is and ask Jason to be careful. Then, as Zack and Trini talk about the baby's future and how they are going to have to take care of him since he has no one, 11 interrupts them and tells them that they need to go to the infirmary fast. Zack and Trini freak out and ask about the baby's health, but 11 tells them that his health is fine, but there is another situation they need to look at. The supposed baby has woken up and is no longer a baby. Apparently its metabolic system is so fast that the growth of this alien is accelerated. On Earth, everyone is protected in the force field and King Eridan starts his attack to try to destroy the force field, but he doesn't manage to do anything about it. King Eridan talks about King Mondo, the leader of the Machine Empire, and says that he is going to steal his place in the Dark Speeder group. Inside the force field, Matthew tries to convince the others by saying that he should go out to stop the attack, but Zordon and Grace tell him that if the force field holds out then he should stay inside until the other Rangers arrive. Grace tries to explain to him that if he sends him out to stop the attack, it would be unnecessary since the shield is holding up so well. Because of the whole situation, Rocky decides to take his brothers to the power chamber, so they don't have to see everything that is going on. After so much time attacking the shield, King Eridan decides to use a more powerful weapon to destroy the force field but decides to continue attacking with the other weapons even though they are not working, just to make everything more dramatic. In the power chamber, Rocky is with his brothers and sisters. At that moment Matthew arrives and tries to talk a little with the kids to get them to think about something else. He also asks Rocky to talk and tells him that he is coming out, and even though Rocky offered his help, Matthew refused as he knows that Zordon has a rule that no Ranger can reveal his identity and Rocky's family would know. Before Matthew goes out to fight, Zordon tells him that he was wrong in his choices as Matthew is just like Tommy. Zordon did not choose him to be a Power Ranger, yet both have been able to be good Rangers. In addition to this, Zordon shows his support for him to be a Ranger. The other Rangers are now on the planet Leonis, a planet located in the Lion Galaxy, where they have a hidden command center, and the king of this planet has in his body the device that makes the command center undetectable. The king is going to have a party and the Rangers must enter and be near the king for 4 minutes in order to deactivate the device with another device invented by Billy. At the party, Aisha and Tommy must go in, but Adam and Kimberly must go into a security tower to disable the satellites that prevent the Rangers from transporting the command center to Earth. Billy says that Alpha 5 must go with Aisha and Tommy to the party as he must help them disable the security system in order to get inside, and then he will provide support inside. Tommy disagrees with this idea as Alpha is known throughout the galaxy and that would give them away. Alpha 5 replies that he has a disguise, but Tommy still doesn't want Alpha to go with them. On Earth, King Eridan meets the Green Ranger and thinks he is Tommy when he was still Rita's servant. The king tells the Green Ranger that if he allows him to destroy everything and torture Zordon for many years, then perhaps he will spare his life. The Green Ranger makes it clear to him that he is not Tommy, and he does not accept this request as well, and then the battle begins. We can clearly see that the king is very powerful and starts to beat up Matthew. On planet Leonis, Aisha and Tommy are at the palace where the king is going to have the party and realize that they can't enter through the main entrance, so they decide to enter through the hard way. When they manage to get in, they steal the costumes of other guests, and at that moment the king is talking to his guests. Tommy interrupts him and tries to have a conversation with him, but the king realizes that Tommy doesn't know anything about what he is talking about, so he starts asking him questions, suspecting that Tommy shouldn't be at that party. At that moment, Tommy is saved by Alpha 5, who mysteriously managed to enter the party disguised as a stylist. Back on Earth, the Green Ranger continues to battle, and inside the shield, Rocky, Grace, and Dr. Zaskin try to find a solution to help Matthew. King Aridin and his entire army are robots, so Rocky has the idea that maybe they can shut them down like any other electronic device. Dr. Zaskin has the idea of inventing a device that they can point at King Aridin and shut him down. While the Green Ranger is having a tough battle, Rocky tells him that they need the dragon dagger for a few seconds, and this was unexpected for Matthew since that was his only weapon at the time, but he decides to trust Rocky and looks to dodge all the blows without his weapon. After that, they return the gun to Matthew with the new device attached to the dagger and tell him to aim it at King Aridin. At that moment, Matthew aims it at the king and gives him a big pulse shock to try to shut down the machines, but even though it was a hard hit to the king, it still did nothing to him. After the blow, the king gets up and tells the Green Ranger that they are automaton machines and can't shut them down easily, and then starts attacking him again. Rocky is getting desperate as he wants to help his partner and tells Zordon that he must break his rules about identity. Zordon replies to him that his rules have to change, and the new rule is that no Ranger dies. With this, Zordon gives Rocky permission to go out and fight alongside Matthew, but first he goes to talk to his brothers and sisters to say goodbye and tells them he has to go do something important. The Red Ranger leaves the force field, and a new battle is about to begin. In Safe Haven, Zack is still trying to calm the new alien girl who keeps growing at an impressive speed and has big changes in several hours very quickly. Trini went in search of food and Zack is left alone in the house trying to take care of the girl, but she keeps crying non-stop. Zack keeps trying to give her food, but the little girl throws all the food everywhere and Zack doesn't know what he is doing. At that moment, Trini arrives, and the girl stops crying, and it seems that she feels calmer around her. Trini tells Zack that she is still running tests in the capsule where the girl was to get more information about her, but the process is going to take several days. This scares Zack because with the speed at which the girl is growing in a couple of days, she could be an old woman. At that moment, Zack confesses to Trini that he named the girl who is now going to be called Journey, but she gets very angry since they had made the decision not to get attached to the girl since they are not her real parents, and they are only taking care of her. Trini and Zack begin to argue, but the girl starts to talk and tries to say her name and causes a lot of affection in Trini. On planet KO-35 are Jason, Andrus, and Yale searching for the central base of the Zurichs, the aliens who destroyed this planet. Jason feels a little angry that he has given Andrus his full trust, but he still hasn't told Jason where they are going and what they are looking for. After almost 2 days of searching, the Rangers find the Zurichs base, which is full of soldiers and prisoners from the planet. Andrus tells Jason what the plan is, and that is that they are going to infiltrate the place and neutralize the vigilantes silently and then seek to free the prisoners. Jason asks Andrus what happened on the planet, and he replies that Dark Spectre recruited the Zurichs to wipe out the planet since Zordon was helping the inhabitants develop Ranger technology. Andrus says that he and Zane were part of the Rangers and were to share Ranger technology with other nearby planets to create an alliance. Apparently, Dark Spectre had the same idea and sent the Zurichs to destroy everything. After that, they sent a swarm of insects that turned all the people into monsters, and the survivors had to fight against their own people. Andrus tried to protect the people who survived, but several days ago he went to look for food, and when he came back, the people were gone. The Zurichs are going to continue to take everything that is left of the planet, and when they have everything, then they will execute all the survivors and then leave. Andrus very angrily tells Jason that it doesn't matter if there are 1 million Zurich soldiers, tonight they are going to win the battle. Back in Safe Haven, Journey is still growing up and is now getting into lots of mischief like any 5-year-old girl. Then, Zack takes her for a walk and tries to teach her new words, and Journey continues to learn, but just then, an animal from the planet appears and tries to attack them. Zack transforms and grabs the girl and starts to run, but turns around and manages to kick the animal, which leaves in pain, and Journey looks like she enjoyed the whole adventure, but Zack asks her not to say anything to Trini. It is already night in KO 35, and it is time for Jason, Andrus, and Yale to enter the base to save the prisoners. The Zurich's vigilantes realize that there is something strange at the water exit, and at that moment, Andrus shoots one of the vigilantes with his blaster. The other one tries to escape, but Andrus also shoots him after the vigilante had already given the alert. Now, we can see the Ranger suit that Andrus has, which is a different suit than the one we have already seen for years. This new suit is completely black and has a different symbol on the chest. Andrus wants them to split up, but Jason insists that they should stay together since this is just a mission to rescue the survivors. Andrus continues to insist that he wants to attack the Zurichs and show them the same mercy they have shown. Just then, the Rangers are attacked by a group of Zurich soldiers, and Jason tells Yale that he knows what he must do. The battle begins, and Andrus begins to attack the Zurichs without mercy and with a great thirst for revenge. Jason realizes this and tries to stop him, telling him that he must remember that they are only there to rescue the survivors. At that moment, Yale arrives with all the rescued prisoners who attacked the Zurichs. Andrus is confused and doesn't know how this happened, and Jason tells him that this happened remembering that it was a rescue mission. Back in Safe Haven, Zack is teaching Journey how to play a sport they have on that planet. A family passes by the same place who also have a little girl just like them, and the family stops to say hello to the Rangers and talk a little with Journey as well. When the family leaves, Journey realizes that they are all the same, but she doesn't look like Zack and Trini. Because of this, she asks them why she is different. Trini decides to tell her the truth and tells her that they are not her real parents and that her real family may be dead, or maybe there is also a possibility that they are still alive. In addition to this, she also promises him that they will take care of her and keep searching until they find her real family. At that moment, Zack receives a call from Kimberly, who is on another planet and apparently gives the Rangers some bad news. On KO-35, the survivors board a ship to escape the planet and seek refuge, at which point Andrus says goodbye, but Jason asks him to go with him to safe haven. Andrus then tells Jason that during the invasion the Zurich stole the Astro megaship, which contained most of the Ranger technology, including several prototype morphers. If Dark Spectre finds this technology, then the Morphin grid will be at risk. Andrus says goodbye to Tikwa and has a conversation with her as he apparently has a secret plan that the Rangers cannot know about. Part of that secret mission is to save Zane and make Dark Spectre pay for everything he did to this planet. Now, Jason talks Eleven into opening the portal that takes them back to Safe Haven, and on the other side are Zack and Trini waiting for Jason to give him the bad news Kimberly told them. Trini is crying and Zack doesn't know how to tell Jason what was going on. Finally they tell him that his mom had passed away. Tommy, Aisha, and Alpha 5 are on planet Leonis at the party of the king, trying to complete the mission to get the location of the command center they have hidden there. Alpha saves Tommy as he starts talking to the king, and he believes everything that Alpha is saying, who is disguised as a stylist. At that moment, Billy sends a message to Aisha and tells her that he already has all the data he needs and can get Tommy and Alpha out of the place. Although Aisha was enjoying Alpha's performance, she interrupts the conversation and manages to get them out of the place. On Earth, Rocky joins Matthew to fight King Aridin in a tough battle. The Rangers are trying to buy time to wait for the other Rangers who are on planet Leonis. Matthew is fighting the king and Rocky must take out all the other robots. Unfortunately, the king is very powerful and is beating the crap out of Matthew. The king has the Green Ranger lying on the ground about to finish him off, and Rocky saves him by firing his blaster. The two continue to fight and try to stick to the plan so they can give the other Rangers more time. In Leonis, Kimberly and Adam are in the planet's security tower to try to disable the satellites in order to teleport the command center. Adam helps Kimberly go down to a place full of laser beams that can trigger the alarm, but she deactivates them by launching an arrow with great precision. They manage to enter the place and neutralize the guards. Then they encounter a janitor who continues to do his job and doesn't bother the Rangers. After neutralizing several guards, they reach the security center and start looking for the button to turn off the satellites. Meanwhile, Kimberly is surprised that Adam has learned how to be a Power Ranger very quickly and feels that she is not that important since they can easily replace her. Adam tells her that she shouldn't feel that way, she should look at it from another point of view. If other people can replace her, then she doesn't have the weight of the security of the universe on her shoulders. Any day she can retire and move on with her life, as nothing lasts forever, and someday, she won't be a Power Ranger anymore. The war on Earth continues, and the king takes advantage of Rocky's back and launches an attack, but Matthew throws himself at him and is shot. The attack was so powerful that they both destroy a rock, and a cave is formed where they begin to talk about what to do next. The king is very powerful, and they are both badly hurt. Matthew can no longer get up and Rocky begins to feel that he doesn't have the power to defeat the king. Matthew tells Rocky that he is very strong despite being under so much pressure from the invasion. He still hasn't stopped taking care of his family. With those words, Rocky regains his strength and stands up ready to continue fighting, but before he leaves, Matthew gives him the power of the dragon. Rocky goes out to fight and quickly breaks the king's weapon with his sword and the dragon dagger at the same time. On the other planet, the Rangers find the command center and prepare to make the biggest teleportation in the history of the universe. Rocky is still fighting, and even though the king no longer has any weapons, he is still very powerful and hard to defeat. The other Rangers are still preparing, and Tommy is a little scared as it is a very complicated mission, but Billy tells him that they have everything under control. The king has Rocky on the floor almost defeated and already wants to finish him off, but Rocky keeps resisting while the other Rangers are about to do the teleportation. At that moment, the king grabs Rocky by the helmet, but Rocky doesn't give up and tells him that he's not going to let it go, so the king tells him that he's going to bury him there and throws him hard against the ground. At that moment, the Rangers start the teleportation from planet Leonis, and the plan that Billy and Grace have is that the rubble of the old command center is moved 1 kilometer to the west and the new command center is teleported to the same place where the old one was. Despite the heavy impact, Rocky gets up and the king grabs his broken gun to throw at Rocky. The king tells Rocky that he is finished and defeated, but Rocky replies that the plan the Rangers have is going to work. The king mockingly asks him about the plan, and Rocky replies that on Earth we call it stalling. At that precise moment, all the Rangers arrive: Tommy, Kimberly, Billy, Adam and Aisha, along with the command center in one of the most epic moments I have ever seen. At that moment, Rocky tells the king that the Earth will always be protected and that he should leave right now and to tell all of his friends. At that moment, the king quickly leaves in his ship into space, while Rocky enters the power chamber to see his family. All his brothers and sisters hugged him, very relieved that it's all over now. His sister tells him that she is proud of him in a roundabout way by making him understand that she knows his secret. Now they are all together in the new command center, and Tommy tells Grace and Matthew that even though they don't have the best relationship, he is still very grateful for all the help they have given them and for protecting their home. Matthew tells Tommy that he only served as support since Rocky did the most important work. Aisha asks if they should start worrying about Lord Zed's location since they don't know anything about him. Zordon tells her that they should worry about that another time, and for now they should just enjoy the great mission they have all done. At that moment, Rocky interrupts the conversation to ask about Alpha's location since he didn't come with the Rangers, and Grace asks about the ship he loaned them. Billy tells them that Alpha is on his way back from planet Leonis with the ship and should arrive soon. The Rangers, instead of teleporting the command center along with the ship, apparently decided to have Alpha fly the ship to Earth. At that point, Kimberly gets a call and says they need to call the Omega Rangers. Adam thinks they want to have a party to celebrate having a new command center, but the call was for something else. Those who saw the previous episode know that the Omega Rangers got a call from Kimberly, and it was to tell Jason that his mom had passed away. The mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Omega Rangers are all on Earth at Jason's mother's funeral. After the ceremony at the cemetery, everyone gathers at Jason's house to support the family. At that moment, Ernie, who tends the juice bar, approaches Jason to give him words of support and tells him that one day he saw his mother hiding watching Jason teach some kids. Ernie offers his full support, then leaves in tears, and Jason continues to greet everyone else. Outside the house are the other Rangers talking about the cause of death of Jason's mother, and at the end Kimberly said that Jason's father revealed to her that it was due to a heart arrhythmia. In Safe Haven, there is Andrus and Eleven with Azurix, which they have him as a prisoner to try to get information about Dark Spectre's plans, but despite all their efforts, the Azurix does not tell them anything. The prisoner takes the opportunity to try to humiliate Andrus by telling him that the people of his planet were cowards because they had invaded another planet which was less developed and the people were able to defend themselves, but the people of KO-35 hid like cowards. Andrus and Eleven leave the prisoner's room, and Eleven apologizes to Andrus for not being able to help him and get information out of the prisoner, but Andrus tells him that they can try again tomorrow. Then they say goodbye and Eleven thinks Andrus is going to sleep, but in reality, he came back with the prisoner and pulls him out of his energy shield to have another kind of dialogue without witnesses. On Earth, Jason is trying to talk to his father, but his father constantly ignores him, and Jason realizes this. In the end, they have a small argument, and the father tells him that he is going to sell the house and move out, that he doesn't need Jason and that everyone should live their lives as they want. At the juice bar, Zach gets a call from Journey, who is now the size of a 10-year-old girl despite being only a week old. Journey is performing a magic act and the Rangers are enjoying the show. Then, Zach says goodbye to Journey and tells her it's time for bed. At that point, he begins to have a conversation with Aisha, who asks him if they are ready to leave Journey when they find their planet. At the GYM are Trini, Jason and Tommy working out and talking about King Aridin, who almost defeated the Rangers. Tommy and Trini are very concerned about Jason's emotional health and tell him he can take a few days off to rest, but Jason tells them he is in good health and wants to keep working. The next day in Safe Haven, Eleven and Andrus return to talk to the prisoner, who by some coincidence is very beaten and now wants to cooperate by providing all the information he can. The prisoner makes several confessions and talks about the possible location of the Astro megaship. After that, Eleven locks him in a kind of space chest similar to the same one Zordon used to lock Rita in. He then takes the chest to a giant vault where there are many chests and tells him that he will be safe there until he is judged in an SPD court. Despite everything, the chest seems to have an open lid and a light comes out of it. Then, the prisoner's voice is heard calling Andrus and asking him to get him out of there. Andrus appears and tells him that he must activate the device he gave him in order to teleport inside. Now they are both inside the vault and the prisoner starts telling Andrus that he fulfilled his part of the deal and now he must fulfill his part and get him out of there to be free. Suddenly, Andrus begins to hear a voice telling him that revenge is a great ally, but the Zurix doesn't hear the voice and thinks Andrus has gone mad. At that moment, the Zurix gets very angry that Andrus is ignoring him and tries to attack him, but Andrus takes him out with his blaster. Andrus keeps hearing the voice and starts to follow it to find out where it is coming from. That voice starts to tell him that it was waiting for him and that it had been there in the dark for thousands of years. At the command center, Jason and Zordon are having a conversation about everything that needs to be improved so that the same thing that happened on planet KO-35 doesn't happen again. Then, this conversation gets a little awkward as Zordon tries to give Jason words of support and tells him he can take a few days off. Jason gets angry and tells him that everyone is treating him like he is bad, but he really has nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. He also tells Zordon that he is a little jealous of Andrus because even though he lost everything, at least he has someone to blame and take it out on. He lost his mother and can't do anything about it. Back in Safe Haven, we can see that Andrus is still chasing the voice and entering deep into the darkness of the vault. The voice gets louder and louder until he finally manages to find the chest where the voice is coming from. This chest is different from the others. It is isolated and chained, which gives us a clear reference that what is inside is very dangerous. The voice says that he was able to defeat death, and this is why Andrus wants to free him to help him defeat Dark Spectre. The voice tells him that he will do that and much more. It also tells him that Andrus has seen the face of death and with loss comes understanding and power. It also tells him something very important, and that is that long ago he was one of those chosen to protect the universe forever and he has some unfinished business. Andrus then breaks the chains and opens the chest to see that what is inside is a gauntlet just like the Omega Rangers. Several days after Jason's mother's funeral, Kimberly goes to visit him because he is very depressed and won't accept help from anyone. She brings him food and Jason receives it with no desire to receive visitors. When they are in the kitchen, she realizes that several people have already brought him food as well and Jason has a lot of clutter in his house. She offers to help him, but Jason insists that he is fine and doesn't need anyone's help. When she leaves Jason's house, Kimberly runs into Trini outside and they begin to have a chat. Kimberly thought Trini had come to help Jason, but she had actually just left since she also realized that Jason wants to be alone. The two begin to talk about how after they get to Earth, they must answer all their cell phone messages since they don't have that signal in space to receive messages and calls from Earth. Trini also tells Kimberly that she needs to go shopping since they don't have clothes for humans in space. After trying on a lot of clothes, Trini decides to wear something more daring and Kimberly is a little confused since she had not seen Trini with that style, but she tells her that in space she learned not to follow cultural fashions. Then, they both sit down to eat and start to have a little awkward conversation as Trini starts to tell her about some secrets. Kimberly was surprised as she couldn't believe that there were other Power Rangers now that she knew about Andrus. Trini tells her that there are actually more things that they don't know, and because of this Kimberly is very curious to know more about it. Trini begins to tell her about how everyone knows that Lord Drakkon had escaped from his cell and then returned to help with the Imperials, but that wasn't the first time he had actually returned. The first time he came back was when he killed Tommy, and Rangers of all times and space came to defeat Drakkon. At that time, all the memories the Rangers had of that event were erased, but an emissary restored the Omega Rangers' memories, and that is why Trini knows all of this. Kimberly gets a little confused and obsessed with all these secrets Trini told her and goes to the command center where Billy is repairing the Zords to ask him for a favor. She tells Billy that he was able to repair and upgrade the Green Ranger power coin, so maybe he can manage to upgrade the powers of the Power Rangers. Billy suspects that this request is because of something else, so he asks Kimberly, and she replies that she talked to Trini about the future of the Power Rangers and found out that they are all replaceable. Billy starts to get interested in the situation, and Kimberly tells him that the Rangers always put their lives at risk and need to increase their power to be prepared. Billy agrees to start working on something that will help them improve and is going to share the idea when he has something worthwhile. Kimberly goes to the GYM to train, but she is still very thoughtful about the whole thing. At that moment, Tommy arrives and realizes that something is wrong with Kimberly. Even though he tries to talk about it, she doesn't feel like talking about all the bad things she is thinking. Even so, Tommy tells her that she doesn't have to go through all of this alone. At that moment, Kimberly receives an alert from Billy and Tommy decides to join her. The Rangers arrive at the command center to talk to Billy, and he tells them that he searched Zordon and Alpha's files so he wouldn't invent something that had already been made up, and found something that can help them improve their powers. Billy's plan is to send the Rangers to a simulated pocket dimension where he can create fake villains so the Rangers can practice and use the new power. Kimberly and Tommy make their transformation and travel to the pocket universe Billy has prepared. Quickly, in this universe, you can find old villains, the Z-Putty Patrollers, which were the first soldiers that Rita used to confront the Power Rangers. Then, Billy introduces the most recent villains, the machines that Rocky and Matthew had to fight. The Rangers begin the battle, and Billy tells them they can activate the new power to begin the test. The metal armor is the new power that the Rangers now have, which gives them more strength and power to continue battling. The Rangers begin to test their new power and realize that they can destroy enemies even with their bare hands. At that moment, Billy realizes that the new armor consumes a lot of power from the Morphin grid, but the problem with this new power is that the energy is very unstable. Because of this, Billy asks the Rangers to deactivate the new power, but Kimberly starts to really like the power and doesn't want to deactivate it. Tommy talks to Kimberly and tells her that they should deactivate the power and do what Billy says, but she still thinks she can control all that power. Billy clarifies to her that it's not about self-control, but that the new armor's power is volatile and that throws the Morphin grid out of control. The pocket dimension depends on the Morphin grid and it is very risky. At that moment, the communication with Billy is cut off and the Rangers try to connect again but are unsuccessful. They start to worry, so they decide they must get out of there, but realize that nothing works. At that moment, a black hole opens in the sky which begins to destroy everything in the city, including buildings, roads, and even the enemies that were there for the Rangers to practice. The ground begins to break, and lava appears. Now it forms a kind of tornado that falls to earth and forms a giant sphere that begins to swallow everything around it. At that moment, a voice is heard coming out of the sphere, a voice of someone that many of us know, but that the Rangers of that time still do not know. From the sphere begin to come out several of the worst villains that have existed in the entire history of Power Rangers. Now we get to see Drakkon, the villain from Lost Galaxy. Then there's Sledge, a villain we started seeing in Dino Charge E but was in several more seasons. We can also see the Black Lion Warrior from Jungle Fury. Then there is Void Queen from Dino Fury, and finally we can see one of the worst villains ever, Rancic from Time Force. Trini and Zack are shopping at Safe Haven for food with Journey, who has grown up quickly and is now a teenager. At this point in her adolescence, she is in a rebellious and misbehaving phase. Because of this, she has many arguments with Zack and says she hates them both. At that moment, Archon and Keva arrive, who invite them to a dinner to celebrate life since they knew that Trini and Zack were at a funeral. At that moment, Keva meets Journey and the two show a mutual interest in each other. When Archon and Keva left, Zack wasn't too sure he wanted to go to the dinner, but Trini was the one who accepted the invitation since she realized Journey was interested in Keva. At that moment, we can see Vox's followers, who were hiding in the shadows keeping an eye on the Omega Rangers. These villains were destroying another planet, but they heard Omega's message, and with that they knew their exact location. The Omega Rangers have Vox imprisoned, and that is why his followers were looking for the Omega Rangers, in order to free their boss. Now, Jason, Andrus and Eleven are planning how they are going to look for the Astro Megaship, since Eleven was able to find it with the help of the Zurichs they were holding prisoner and cooperated voluntarily after a short visit from Andrus. Part of the mission is to evade an entire army, and Andrus intends to do the mission alone, but Jason won't allow it and tells him that Rangers always help each other, because if something goes wrong, then he will have support. At the house, Zack and Trini start an argument with Journey, since now they are going to have to go out in search of the Astro Megaship, and they are going to leave Journey alone, who is very angry because she can never go with them. He obviously explains to her that they can't take her since it's a war zone, plus he tells her to go to the dinner by herself, but not to hang out with Keva since he's a bad influence. This makes Journey very angry, and again she and Zack start arguing. Journey starts to cry and says that one day she will wake up and she will be older than them and will not have been able to do anything with her life. She also wished they had never found her. On the Astro Megaship is the entire Zurich's army, and along with them is the Prime Minister and the Viceroy, who have the mission to dismantle the entire ship, but there is one room that they have not been able to open because of the high level of security. This room contains the biggest secrets of the ship, and the Viceroy says that Dark Spectre sent Drakkon to look for exactly what is inside that room. Just then one of the Zurichs arrives to tell the Viceroy that the Power Rangers have arrived. Outside the ship were Trini and Zack in their Omegazords, and Andrus was in his Galaxy Glider trying to invade the ship. At that point, the mission was to disable the shield generator so the Rangers could enter the ship, and Zack was able to complete the mission and remove the shields. Thanks to this, Jason and Yale were able to invade the ship and started fighting with all the Zuriks that were at the entrance. At Safe Haven, Journey and Kever went for a walk for a while, and Journey tells him about the argument he had with Zack and what he said about Kever. Despite this, Kever gives Journey good advice and tells her that for a while he was alone and did everything he wanted, but it's actually good to have several adults who care about you, ask if you ate and who you're going out with. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Archon and Eleven are preparing food and having a conversation about the different flavors of energy to charge Eleven. At that moment, Eleven receives a shock from Vox's followers, who take advantage of the opportunity that the Rangers are out of the planet. Inside the Astro Megaship are Yale, Andrus and Jason fighting with many Zuriks, and Jason tells Andrus that even though he likes the black suit, he should do Morphin since that would be the help they need. Andrus tells him that even though he can morph, he won't do it since he promised himself that when he fixes all that trouble that happened on his planet, then he will morph again. Jason respects his decision, but suddenly he realizes that Andrus is gone. Now Jason and Yale have to face an army by themselves. Andrus had gone to look for Zane, who was dead, and his body was in a box similar to the escape chamber where the Rangers found Journey. Andrus opens the box and puts the gauntlet he found in the chest in Safe Haven's vault into his hand, and Zane is revived. In Safe Haven, Vox's followers want to enter that same vault to look for their boss there, but despite threatening Archon by telling him they are going to eat rotisserie chicken, he still won't give them access to the vault since the only one who can open it at that moment is Eleven, but they disabled him upon arrival. Kever and Journey are in hiding figuring out how they are going to help Archon, but Journey is too scared and Kever tells him they must go out and fight. On the other side, Trini and Zack are surrounded by many members of the Zuriks army. Jason and Yale can no longer continue fighting with so many soldiers, and when they are about to change the plans, someone hits very hard to all the Zuriks. Jason and Yale are very confused and all the Zuriks fall defeated. At that moment, Andrus' voice is heard apologizing to Jason for abandoning them, but Andrus doesn't come alone, he comes with his friend Zane. In this image we can see that Zane has teeth like a skull, which means that there is something inside him that is different. This is the awakening of the Death Ranger, the beginning of one of the most powerful Rangers in the history of the franchise. In the pocket dimension, which is damaged, and the Rangers no longer have communication with Billy, are Tommy and Kimberly, who are about to have a battle with Rancic and several other villains. The villains are a bit confused because they can't recognize the Rangers since they are not from their time, but they still want to take them down. Tommy and Kimberly are aware of this, so they begin a dialogue that they are going to have to fight. The battle begins and the Rangers quickly realize that these villains are very powerful. Tommy tries to attack, but they hit him so hard that he goes out flying. Kimberly shoots an arrow, but it is easily deflected. Then several villains attack Tommy at the same time. Kimberly tries to help him, but they also attack her. Rancic grabs Tommy by the neck and says this brings back memories. At that moment, Rancic hits Tommy so hard that he destroys all his armor and he is left lying on the ground while Kimberly is badly injured and can't do anything. Kimberly tries to save Tommy, so she holds him and starts to fly away, while the villains get a little desperate as they don't want to let her escape. But one of them says to let them go so they can hunt them down and it will be more fun. Kimberly is desperate and starts checking Tommy's pulse to see if he is still alive. Tommy is still alive, but he is badly wounded and can no longer fight. Just then the unexpected happens. The pink emissary appears and tells Kimberly that Tommy is only alive because of the awesome armor the Rangers have developed. Kimberly is confused as she thought there were only 3 emissaries. But the emissary tells her that their job is to exist beyond the known to monitor the Morphin grid for threats. Kimberly blames herself for everything that is happening as she thinks she pushed Billy and now the new armor has created instability in the grid. The emissary clarifies to her that even though the armor was unstable, what really caused those villains to arrive was her fear. Kimberly tells her that she is afraid because Trini told her that Tommy died in the events of the shattered grid and that the Rangers must be replaced by other Rangers. The emissary tells her that she has a little knowledge, but in reality, she has a lot of misconceptions, yet she blames herself because the emissaries thought that erasing the memories of the shattered grid events would help protect them from further disruption, but in reality the opposite happened. At that moment, the pink emissary puts her finger on Kimberly's forehead and gives her back all the memories of those events, including the entire battle and the Rangers she helped. With these memories back in her mind, Kimberly realizes that they are not going to replace them, but that it is natural causes of their own that bring about the retirement of each Ranger. She is very remorseful, and the pink emissary tells her that now that she is closer to the pink specter, she can use that to defeat the villains of that dimension. After this, Kimberly seeks out the villains and they are shocked and think she just wants a quick end. But what they don't know is that now she has a greater power, the power of knowledge. Suddenly, Kimberly raises her arms and begins to raise the pink power. With this power, all the pink Rangers of the story appear, guided by Kimberly saying that it's Morphin time. All the Rangers do Morphin and Kimberly tells them that they are going to show the villains what awaits them in the future. All the pink Rangers start attacking all the villains, forming a big team, which is winning the battle. In this battle we can see all the pink Rangers of the story, including Dino Fury's Pink Ranger. Now several Rangers use their blasters to attack Rancic heavily, and Kimberly continues to lead the team and gives the order to surround the villains to finish them off. Kimberly gives the order, and all the Rangers start attacking at the same time, causing a big explosion and the destruction of all the villains. After this attack, all the villains begin to disappear, but the pink Rangers are also disappearing, and Kimberly says goodbye to them. At that moment, Billy's voice starts to be heard, who is still trying to communicate with the Rangers. Now Kimberly and Tommy return to the command center and Billy starts to apologize for the whole situation, but Kimberly tells him that it's all her fault. Billy checks on Tommy and says that everything is fine, but now he's going to leave the armor development to Zordon and Alpha. Billy asks Kimberly about what happened in the other dimension, and she tells him she got some perspective. Now Kimberly and Tommy sit outside the command center at sunset and start talking about the situation that was going on with Kimberly. She apologizes to Tommy as she feels guilty because he almost got killed in that other dimension, but Tommy tells her that a lot of things happened that she couldn't have prevented it. Kimberly tells him that she was able to meet other Rangers and they were all cool. She was able to see a future where they were no longer Power Rangers and had stopped being Power Rangers by choice. She also tells him that even though she doesn't want to retire now, still, she should start considering other things in life, maybe travel the world, and tells Tommy that maybe he can go with her. Tommy tells her that he is afraid to give up the power of the Rangers as he doesn't want to become Drakkon, but she tells him that he is never going to become Drakkon. Kimberly also tells him that today he learned that they should worry less about the future and worry more about the present. Kimberly and Tommy enter the command center and are met with the surprise that the other Rangers were all gathered together. Rocky tells Kimberly that because of the situation she was going through and that they know now that they are not the only Rangers, that they should have a name for their group, and maybe this will give her some encouragement. Kimberly thanks them all but tells them that she already overcame her crisis and now she just wants to help as many people as she can while it is her turn to be a Ranger. Now the Rangers are off to the juice bar, and we get to see all the names the Rangers wrote down. On the Astro Megaship, Jason, Yale and Andrus are still on the ship with supposedly Zane, although in reality this is no longer the real Zane, but another being that took over his body. Jason is very confused as he does not know who this person is and feels that something is not right. Zane calls Jason by name and tells him that he will understand everything in due time, but that he has seen his life and his death. He has also seen his mother, and if Jason follows him then he will show him much more. Andrus and Zane begin to power up the ship, while Jason tries to communicate with the other Omega Rangers, who were desperate to hear from Jason. Zack and Trini realize that the Astro Megaship is preparing its weapons to fire, and Jason inside realizes that Andrus and Zane were ready to fire. Zane presses the button and fires all the weapons to explode the Zurich ship and destroys everything there. Jason can't believe it, and Zane confesses to him that they are not going to Safe Haven, they are going to KO-35. In Safe Haven, Journey and Kever are in the weapons room looking for some things to fight Vox's followers. Kever has doubts and doesn't know if Journey knows how to fight, but she tells him that Trini and Zack taught her some moves. Kever then tries to attack her to know her reflexes, but Journey defends herself very well and throws him to the ground. Vox's followers try to break the vault door to get their boss out of there. While Archon is on the floor, he tells the leader of the followers that they traveled just to get Vox's psycho out. The leader beats him and tells him who Vox really is, that he was touched by the energy of the Morphin grid in the events of the Shattered Grid, and from that moment he started to save his world, which was led by corrupt politicians. At that moment, Journey and Kever enter to start attacking Vox's followers and help their friend Archon. At first, the leader of the followers thought they were the Rangers, but Archon feels sorry for the leader since he knows that Journey and Kever are more rebellious. In space, Trini and Zack are following the Astro megaship and trying to communicate with Jason, but they are unable to do so. They don't know where they are going either and are very desperate and confused. Inside the ship, Jason is very angry because they should not have blown up that ship. He begins to have an argument with Zane, and in the end, Jason demands him to answer who he really is. This being replies that he is just now Zane from KO 35, but before that he was Spark the Gold Omega Ranger. Jason had never heard of a Gold Omega Ranger, and Andrus tries to tell him that when he became a Ranger, he started hearing a lot of stories about the ancient Omega Rangers and the Gold Omega Ranger who conquered death. Jason is very angry as Andrus manipulated them to get to the vault and release this supposed Ranger when he was on Earth at his mother's funeral. Andrus tells him it was the only way to get Zane and his people back. Then Zane starts telling him the whole plan. They have to resurrect the people of KO 35 and then take down the Zurichs and Dark Spectre. They will then travel all over the galaxy to resurrect everyone who was wronged and finally bring justice. Jason tries to convince Andrus that all of that is wrong and tells him that he understands what it's like to lose the people you love, that all of that is not justice, that all of that is revenge. Even so, Andrus still thinks that he deserves to have his revenge, but Jason keeps trying to convince him that, despite feeling a lot of pain for the loss, a lot of innocent lives are really going to be lost in the process. He also tries to explain to him that he would give anything to get his mother back, but if that thing possessing Zane's body were to bring her back, then she wouldn't be the same. Finally, he tells her that he is using it to At that moment, the unexpected happens. Jason is pierced with a sword in the chest by the being that possesses Zane's body. Now, Andrus is very scared and can't believe what is happening, but Zane tells him that Jason won't be dead for long. Then, Zane's voice changes and it is the voice of this shadowy being saying that Andrus wanted his friend back and he requires a more powerful body. Then, Zane takes off the gauntlet and puts it on Jason, while telling Andrus that he should not regret the death as they are fighting for the soul of the galaxy itself and need soldiers. After this they also take Yale's life to make him just another soldier of this shadowy being. In Safe Haven, Journey and Kever are still fighting with Vox's followers and are winning the battle, but then the leader realizes that there is no one else with them to fight, so he starts trying to hit Kever and breaks his weapon. When he is about to hit Kever, Journey saves him by giving the leader of the followers a terrible kick. The leader is very confident and thinks Journey is no match for him, but she dodges all the blows, raises her weapon with a lot of power and makes a tremendous energy blast. Archon and Kever are surprised because now we can see Journey bigger and they don't know how old she is now. In space, Trini and Zack arrive at KO 35. Their Omegazords don't have much energy anymore, but they must land on the planet since they know that the Astro megaship is there and everyone knows that they already arrived too. On the planet we can see Andrus and Zane talking about the planet and everything that is happening. Zane thinks everything is beautiful, but Andrus tells him that all of this is not right since they were supposed to drive away the horrors, not bring new horrors to the planet. Zane tells him that everything is not exactly as they imagined, but thanks to him the whole planet is about to live again. At that moment, Trini and Zack arrive, they start asking about Jason and Yale. They also ask Andrus about Zane since they had never seen him before. Now something impressive happens. All the dead people on the planet start to resurrect and look like alien zombies. Trini and Zack decide to go back to the Omegazords, but the Death Ranger in Jason's body tells him that he won't allow it. At that moment, Jason and Yale start attacking Trini and Zack, and they still can't understand what is happening. The battle begins and the Death Ranger says that Jason and Yale are at his service and soon they will be too. Then, Zane hits Zack in the back and Yale takes advantage of the moment to attack him. Jason and Trini are also still fighting, and the Death Ranger speaks through Jason's body telling Trini that he got tired of seeing them disgrace the Omega Ranger's name and they have allowed too many things. Meanwhile, Andrus continues to see everything that is happening and feels very sorry. Then Eleven's voice is heard trying to communicate with Andrus. Then Eleven opens the portal and Andrus tells him that when he enters, he should close it quickly. Andrus enters through the portal and Zane tells Jason that they knew Andrus wouldn't have the strength to do all this. Then in Safe Haven we can see Andrus enter through the portal and quickly yell at Eleven to close the portal. Everyone in Safe Haven is confused and asking about the Omega Rangers. Andrus is very remorseful and doesn't know if the Omega Rangers are still alive. Then, on Earth in the new command center we can see Tommy and Billy talking about what happened with Kimberly and the Pink Emissary. They are discussing the possibility that there are more emissaries, one for each ranger, and Billy says that maybe there is a white emissary or maybe all the emissaries are Tommy since the white light is the combination of all the colors. At that moment, Andrus, Eleven, Kever and Journey arrive to ask for help from the Rangers, telling them that the universe is in danger. At the command center on Earth, Andrus is explaining to Zordon who the Death Ranger is and tells him that he had made a deal with him. Andrus would release him in exchange for helping him defeat Dark Spectre, but the Death Ranger did extreme things and now possesses Zane's body and the Omega Rangers. In addition to that, he also awakened all the dead on planet KO-35 and is gathering an army. Andrus also explains that the Death Ranger is using the Morphin grid to control people, so if they find a way to disrupt that connection then they could defeat him. Billy says that he might have a way to do it, but he needs help from Grace Sterling, and Matthew starts calling her on the phone. Adam is worried about the army of the dead, but Zordon tells him that the army is controlled in the same way, so if they can sever the connection, then there will be no more army. Tommy is very upset and starts yelling, saying that they shouldn't trust Andrus since he is to blame for the whole mess. Tommy asks Andrus for a reason to trust him, and Andrus tells him that if at some point he must give his life to save the Omega Rangers, then he would do it without hesitation, since he at least owes them that much. The other Rangers try to reassure Tommy and they say that for them that is enough, so Tommy tells them that it's Morphin time. After the transformation, 11 opens a portal and sends the Rangers to planet KO-35, but a bit far from the city. Then, the Rangers walk to the city and Andrus asks Billy about the new weapon, and he tells him that with one shot from that weapon he can disconnect anyone from the Morphin grid. Tommy asks Andrus if he has any other secrets, and Andrus tells him that it is likely that no one will get off that planet alive. At that moment, the Death Ranger's voice is heard saying that he agrees with that. Then, the possessed Omega Rangers appear on top of the ship and the Death Ranger in Jason's body starts talking to the Rangers, trying to turn them against Andrus, saying that this was all planned by him. Kimberly takes off her helmet and starts giving Jason some words of support, but the Death Ranger says that she is a good friend, but Jason is happy where he is. He also says that he took Jason's pain away and gave him peace in exchange for his body, and he can do the same to all the Rangers if they choose to surrender, but Tommy scoffs, saying that they won't surrender. The battle begins, and this seems to be a war between all the Rangers. Aisha, Rocky and Kimberly are battling against Trini and Yale, but they are trying to just dodge the blows, so they don't hurt the Omega Rangers since they know they are their friends controlled by the Death Ranger. Despite this, Kimberly gets hit by Trini and Aisha is being tempted to hit Trini. Adam and Matthew are fighting Zack, while Billy adjusts his gun to try to free Zack. Then Billy shoots, and even though he hits Zack, it still didn't do anything to him. Elsewhere, Tommy and Andrus are surrounded by all the zombies. Tommy wants to help Andrus, but Andrus tells him that he must go fight the Death Ranger. He is going to take care of the zombies since it is his responsibility for causing all this. At that moment, Zane appears and starts to fight Andrus as he thinks he is a traitor. Now Tommy starts fighting with the Death Ranger, who starts telling him that Jason despises him since the White Lighter should have been his. He also tells him that he is an imposter and doesn't deserve to lead the team since that was Jason's place. Tommy tells him that if he wants to twist Jason's words to hurt him, then he should try a little harder. At that moment, the Ultra Omega Zord appears and Tommy tells him that it doesn't scare him, but then the Death Ranger brings the Gold Omega Zord and joins it with the Ultra Omega Zord to make it more powerful so he can control it by himself without needing the Omega Rangers. Then, Tommy tells the Rangers that he has good news and bad news, but the bad news they can already see. The good news is that the Death Ranger already showed what he had and called the Zords early, so the plan worked. Tommy then asks the Rangers to call in the Thunder Zords and tells Matthew to back up the Rangers with the Dragon Zord. He also tells Andrus to bring him the new weapon, but Billy isn't sure if it will work. Tommy continues to fight with the Death Ranger and asks all the Rangers to trust him. Aisha is worried about what is going to happen to the Omega Rangers by leaving them alone in the battle, but Tommy tells her not to worry as help has just arrived. Just then, Archon, Kevin and Journey arrive to help the Rangers with the zombies and keep the Omega Rangers busy. We can see that Archon has awesome armor and Journey is bigger and looks like a warrior. Trini and Journey start fighting. Meanwhile, Journey starts telling her everything that has happened since they left. He also tells her that Trini is faster and is supposed to have stopped it by now, but he knows Trini is in there fighting too and slows that thing down, so he doesn't hurt her. On the other side of the battle, the Rangers appear with the Thunder Megazord and the Dragon Zord to attack the Ultra Gold Omegazord, but it defends itself and launches an attack on the Thunder Megazord. The Rangers ask Matthew for help, and he starts attacking the Omegazord. Despite all the attacks, the Omegazord defends itself very well and hits the Dragon Zord very hard. On the floor, the battle between Tommy and the Death Ranger continues, but Tommy tells him that he has an offer for him. Tommy tells him that if he releases the Omega Rangers, then he can take his body. The Death Ranger pauses for a moment as the offer is tempting, but Andrus appears and shoots him. Unfortunately, he misses the shot, and the Death Ranger realizes it was all a trap, so he cuts Billy's gun in half. He then tells Tommy that he is going to be his new body so he can control the other Rangers. In that moment of carelessness, Andrus climbs on top of him, and this causes him to laugh, and he tells Andrus that he won't be able to stop him. Andrus tells him that he may not be able to stop him, but the Morphin grid can. Andrus morphs and creates an explosion inside the grid that separates Jason's body and the Death Ranger, but the Death Ranger keeps talking and tells Andrus that he can't hide. Andrus tries to wake Jason up and yells at him that he must wake up. The Death Ranger keeps trying to control Jason's mind, who is trapped in a dream with the other Rangers, and suddenly Andros appears. This surprises Jason as he is confused, but Andros tells him that he must trust him, and they both begin to fall. Now, they appear in another memory of Jason, which is the arrival of all the Rangers before the Battle of the Shattered Grid, and Andros tells him that they must leave quickly. Unfortunately, it's too late. The Death Ranger appears, grabs Jason by the foot, and they start falling. Down come all the memories of Jason's life. Andros tries to help Jason and tells him he must remember who he really is. Now Jason begins to live a memory with his mother, and in that memory, he also asks about his father. At that point, Jason realizes that it's all fake and it's the Death Ranger trying to control him with his mother's memories, so he decides to get the hell out of there. Now, the Death Ranger shows up and tells Jason that he gave him peace, revenge, and freedom, yet they reject him. Jason tells him that they must be better than that because they are Power Rangers, and then hits him so hard that he destroys his armor. At that moment, there is an explosion, and they manage to get out of the Morphin grid and out of Jason's mind. Then, we can see that Jason's body is on the ground and the Death Ranger's presence is gone. Andros says that the Death Ranger's life force has been disconnected from the Morpher and there is no telling where he might be now. Now all the Omega Rangers begin to be released from the Death Ranger's presence and the zombies begin to run out of life. Despite this, the Omegazord continues to attack the Thunderzord and Dragonzord as the Death Ranger's life force joined with the Omegazord. Matthew tells the Rangers that they should merge the Dragonzord with the Thunderzord, and Rocky tells him that he was one step ahead, so they merge both Megazords and transform it into the Dragon Thunderzord. With this new Megazord, the Rangers make a big attack with their sword, and with this they destroy the Death Ranger, who before leaving says that he already saw what is coming and he will be laughing at the Rangers. After a week, the Rangers are in safe haven, but some of them don't want to go back to Earth. But Tommy tells them that Zordon said they must go back before Lord Zed shows up again. Andros thanks Billy for helping him with the cryogenic chamber, and he tells him that if Zane absorbs enough energy from the Morphin grid, then there may be hope. Tommy asks Jason if he has told them yet, and he says not yet, but he will when the time is right. Aisha is worried about leaving Trini and Zach alone, but Kimberly tells her that they will understand since they are also saying goodbye. We can now see Journey in a bed, which looks very old, and the Rangers are saying goodbye to her. Trini tells her that because she went to fight, her metabolism accelerated and so now she is aging faster. Journey is happy that she was able to travel to different worlds, fight aliens, have lots of love and save the universe. People with longer lifespans don't do all those things. After Journey's death, the Omega Rangers meet and Jason tells them that he can no longer morph since in order to destroy the Death Ranger, Andros had to cut Jason's connection to the Omega power. He also tells them that Billy may be able to reconnect him to the grid, but he doesn't know how long that process will take. Trini tells him that he should go rest and spend time with his father since life is very short and he should enjoy it. Meanwhile, someone else will take the leadership. Then, we can see Jason listening to a voice message that his mother had left him before she died. We can also see the Astro Megaship in which Andros goes along with Zane's body in the cryogenic chamber. Now Trini and Zach say goodbye to Jason. Then the Rangers morph and we can see that Kever is now the yellow Omega Ranger and Trini has taken the lead and is the new red Omega Ranger. The message from Jason's mom ends by telling him that the Rangers saved the world again, that their job must be overwhelming, and she would like to give them a hug. At the end she tells him that she loves him.